regular meeting for the Leominster Conservation Commission for, today is June 26, 2018. We will start with some new hearings we have. Our 6 p.m. hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended to be a public hearing on an order of conditions by traditional concepts for construction of a single-family home and associated driveway, utilities, and site grading within a 100-foot buffer zone of a wetland resource area, address 4, Samoset Drive, map 498, lot 1-43, DEP 1991064. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Mr. Mossman could not be here tonight, but he did submit a letter outlining what the request was. I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I think Mr. Mossman spells out what we're asking for in the letter. I did send to Angela a copy of a proposed deed restriction in lieu of the fence. So if the board has any questions about how we want to handle the deed restriction, we'd be glad to answer.
Comments?
Did we request the fence because of the dumping in the vernal pool? Is that what?
There's the potential for it.
Yeah. Right. But wasn't there dumping in this area, or was it dumping on that lot?
If I may, so there was dumping from one of the abutting properties into the buffer zone, which I had sent out an enforcement letter for them to cease and desist.
So, but it wasn't actually in the.
It wasn't in the wetlands, but it also wasn't for Samoset. It was one of the abutters.
I knew it was in a butter, but I'm just concerned not about the property owner or whatever, but more about just protecting that resource.
So you want to remove, because the order currently has a fence.
As a fence.
You want to remove the fence and put this deed restriction in.
Correct.
Thoughts, Brad? I'm still in favor of the fence. Comments?
What's the rationale for removing the fence?
Well, if you go to the site, it's not really something would be conducive for a fence, and to be quite honest, enforcing, somebody not dumping something over a fence is really almost impossible. The deed restriction is going to run with the property in perpetuity. Covers 2 goals. Number one, in the deed restriction, I put that at some point in time you're going to get a certificate of compliance, either partial or total, for the order conditions. This is actually going to survive it beyond that. So basically, what we're telling this board is that we're going to protect the resource area in perpetuity based on a deed restriction. And if you actually go to the site, it's really not conducive aesthetically for a fence. So it's going to really chop the property up and not make it marketable.
Typically, we ask for, like, if there is a resource area like that, we ask for like that that fence line to be maintained in perpetuity, along with not no dumping or anything beyond that area. That can be an ongoing condition attached to the certificate of compliance, and that's something that will show up on the deed. So it's not like we're once the certificate of compliance is issued that we're not gonna have anything on the deed going forward already.
I've never seen a certificate of compliance say that in this ongoing condition.
Oh, we do those.
I've been doing this 30 years. I've never seen that.
You've never seen any orders in perpetuity?
I've never seen the order conditions in perpetuity. Usually,
No, it's a note on attached to the certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions.
I've never seen that. Personally, I've never seen it. Maybe somebody else has. I've never seen it.
Do we have the order?
My concern is, we asked for the fence for a reason,
Well, you have the vernal pool About 55 feet from the house roughly. Mm.
You know, one of the things is when we were here last, we talked about a fence coming across there. The guy that's behind us actually took over a whole bunch of the property that was back there. So he thinks he owns the whole place. And putting a fence up 20 some odd feet from the house back there basically gives him the ability to actually just take over that land. That's what's gonna happen. And that's what's happened. I was kind of disgusted. I got back there and he's put a shed on the property. He's got a little lawn going on the property. We're worried about clippings.
On your 4 Somerset property
Right.
currently right
Right.
now.
So now we've taken 18,000 square feet and we're telling these homeowners that they've got to use the first couple thousand square feet and that's the end of their line. And this guy behind us feels that he's got an extra 15,000 square feet to do whatever he feels like doing. He's cutting pine trees 24 inches across, carrying them down to the wetlands and lopping them into the wetlands. He tried calling and saying that we took down conservation signs that were back there. There was never any conservation signs put up back there because that house that he is living in was outside the 100-foot buffer zone. Those signs didn't start up for maybe 10 or 15 houses later. Joanne had to start putting them on. So that never happened. So we've got a guy taking over property. I've got pictures, I've got a video of them chopping up the trees in the wetlands. I went over to talk to him about it. He started grabbing my phone out of my hand. I said, don't touch me and don't touch my phone. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm videotaping you taking and cutting trees up and putting them into the wetlands and chopping trees up down in the wetlands on my property. And grass clippings, we're worried about grass clippings. We've got people that are, this fellow in particular, 100 feet away, with brand new fresh this week, not this week, 3 weeks ago, grass clippings. And there's probably 17 houses up there that are closer to the wetlands and uphill from the wetlands. Anything that we're doing is downhill from the wetlands. Nothing that we do can head that direction. But we've had no request for a fence at all. And one of the discussions last time we were here was that individual, for a good length of time, talking about the wetlands back there and how we have to protect it while he's destroying it. And that's what kind of got us into the discussion of the fence, and that kind of went on further, and that was our talk that night. If I would have known there was a shed in the middle of my property back there and a lawn, and that he was basically using it as free will, and we're basically empowering him to be able to do that by putting that fence up halfway through the property. So I feel like I've kind of always tried to do anything that we could with the board through that entire project. On the last 15 to 17 houses that had those different issues, conservation issues all the way through. And we've got a homeowner in there that's just basically doing whatever he felt like doing. And then coming to your meeting and telling us that we've got to make sure that this fellow here doesn't, first of all, build a house there, or if we do, we've got to minimize what he's got to do while we let him just take over the back area. It's disheartening, disheartening. And not only in that project, but there's 5 or 6 other places that I've built in town on in the last 5 years that are closer and downhill from where we built that never had such a requirement. And I can probably name off another 25 others that we haven't been involved in. So I feel like being singled out on this. I think the deed restriction gives us everything that we want. Any homeowner that wants to own a home there is not going to want to look at a fence 20 feet away from their house. It's just, they don't want anything to do with it. So we've got a family that is saying, look, I don't want that. They want to be able to look at the woods. And they're being told that they can never do anything to their wetlands. They can't put clippings back there. They can't do this. They can't do that. It's a pretty in-depth deed reference that's going to go forever. And the idea that the fence could be taken down, I had a customer says, what stops me from taking down the fence in, 2 months after you leave. And the fact of the matter is, if we look at the guy right next to him, nothing. Nothing at all. Because obviously he's got a shed right in the middle of the 100-foot buffer zone. But he takes over that property at that point, which isn't wrong. It's adding insult to injury, really. But that's,
Okay. So, yeah, oh,
If I may.
yeah.
If you're concerned about encroachment, I mean, at least I wouldn't be opposed to a fence along the entirely southerly property line there. I mean, it looks like you've got 3 lots that abut you there. Are those the ones that you're
yep,
concerned of coming onto your property?
Yep.
So I don't see why you couldn't continue the fence down that entire length of the line. That's all in the upland area. It's still well away from the vernal pool. I don't think you're limited to putting in a fence in some portion of the lot that's going to encourage encroachment by abutters. I mean, I think it can be configured to meet what we're looking for, which is to protect that vernal pool ultimately. And if you're concerned about encroachment, I think it can be placed on that lot to prevent that as well.
but if we put it up against 56 and 57, some kind of fence right there. Can you see 56 and 57 on your phone?
Yep.
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 You know, that's not an issue, but the issue is that fence would be probably 75 feet away from their houses. The fence that we had, you know, talked about would have been 20 some odd feet off the back of this other house, which is
Yep.
just not a livable situation for a family that's got 18,000 square feet of woods behind them that they get to look at. That's livable for 57 and 56, it's not a problem. But there's not many people that would want to look out their back door and boom, you have the fence right in your face. Well, I think that's about the question.
Hmm.
It's fine, all that, all worked out.
This doesn't show where the fence is it?
It's essentially,
The top
You know,
of the
with-
slope.
right, top of slope, but where the silt fence line is.
Okay.
And we don't even need to bring it to top of slope. We'll be on this side of the slope by a couple feet. So everything pitches out towards the road.
Right.
And that tree that we talked about on the left-hand side of the house, we were able to save that. You know, we talked about, can we save that tree or not? And my intention last time was to take down as few trees as possible.
Have you started excavation on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one gone?
No.
So these are still.
Just for the benefit of the board, is the purpose of the fence basically a line of delineation? Because the intent of the deed restriction was we're going to attach a copy of the plan to show where the delineation was, so it's going to be crystal clear to anybody buying it that.
The only problem we have with deed restrictions is how many homeowners actually read their deed.
I gotta be honest with you, they look at the deed restriction a lot closer than they're gonna look at a significant compliance with an ongoing, which I've actually never seen, an ongoing order. You know, somebody doing the title, or we've already discussed it with my client, it's gonna be part of the P&S, it's gonna be part of the listing. It says this property's gonna have a deed restriction, you know, based on this order of conditions, and it's gonna go in perpetuity. I think people take a harder look at that than his point about a fence. You know, that's a good point. Somebody can be there 2 years and down comes the fence.
Paul, your thoughts? Do you want to make any comments?
The shed that has been mentioned, is that,
So we're 8 acres but on your property.
and it's in the buffer zone?
It's in the buffer zone. It's on raised,
And the owner of the shed is lot 57?
Correct.
We're in the process, we're trying to walk our way through this. We're in the process, we're gonna eventually tell him, you're gonna get your shed off our property, and you're gonna get, there's some other things that are there too that he's gonna take off.
Mhm.
But the shed is in the it's in the buffer zone, along with a stone wall and some lawn that's been installed, and there's been quite a bit of work that's been done there.
Trees cut down on it. And we're gonna tell him to remove all that stuff from the back, and I'll end up removing it if he doesn't.
Right.
And you gave him an enforcement order?
I sent them a letter.
You sent them a letter?
Yeah, I sent them an enforcement letter to cease and
Okay.
desist, and explain appropriate days and when they really can dump their lawn clippings and
Okay.
yard rubbish.
And they received the letter?
Yes, they did. I actually had a face-to-face meeting with the gentleman as well.
Okay.
Any other comments before I open up the public?
I still have a concern about it. I mean, even if it was boulders or some sort of indication, some sort of barrier, I mean, vernal pools, it's a little bit, it is a wetland, but it does a lot more than, a regular wetland does. It provides a lot more wildlife habitat. This was an area that was very carefully considered, and addressed when they did the initial, development up there. There was a lot of the work done, that's back when Keith Lanza was on the commission, and he was, really, I think he certified his vernal pool, so I think we need something to permanently prevent encroachment onto it. I mean, we're already seeing something there. We already see, you just told us that there's now a shed right near there. So, whether it's, if you had large rocks that sort of prevented that sort of urban sprawl from making its way in there, something, that's just something, that's
Like
kind of my.
shrubs or something?
Yeah, a shrub can, a shrub can be taken out, I suppose a fence can too, that's why, a boulder, if they're large enough and it's somehow indicated that needs to remain in perpetuity.
I think signage across the whole top of that's something me and Joanne started, maybe 10 houses after this little section right here. These were outside the 100-foot buffer. 57 was originally outside the 100-foot buffers, and so was 56. After that point down the road, when we started getting to areas that had wetlands behind it, we started lining that whole place with signage all the way around it. And maybe the signage gets a little bit more in depth. We can even put on the signage, deed restriction. We've just been using the smaller signs. And
Right.
in some of the bigger areas, she actually gave me some nice, real big signs.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was conservation. I don't know if you've probably seen it up there. Yeah. But we can probably have some signs created that says per deed restriction on those. These are not to be removed and enforced by Leominster Conservation.
My personal opinion is that without any kind of barrier at all, whether it's boulders or, I would rather see something. I'd rather see whatever it is, whether it's boulders, fence. It's just, we're already seeing encroachment into the area, and, as houses change hands, over time, things are gonna change. I don't know, we see it all the time. In this area, the vernal pool is something we really need to protect, so. My opinion is we need some sort of permanent barrier to prevent any kind of property owner from sprawling into that area. That's just mine. And I think that's why we asked for the fence. So maybe the fence isn't the right solution, but taking down the barrier altogether I don't think is a solution either. Or not a complete one.
Can I open up the Bay Lions? This is an amended one, right? All right.
Could the fence be moved further down the embankment? So it's not in the face of the building?
With putting it over the bank, and you're saying?
Yeah, for keys.
Yes.
Yeah, then they're just gonna, it's gonna make a catch for like grass clippings
Pretty much.
and stuff on the downside, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Just trying to find a happy medium.
No, I
No, I
know.
was thinking of that too, but
Yeah.
it's just gonna lower it and,
Right. Gets rid of the look of the fence, but it doesn't
Yeah.
help protect.
And we've tried to limit the scope of construction up there
Right.
on this lot. And this lot was approved prior, and I think they had a bigger footprint. We've shrunk everything down. We've shrunk the actual area of construction, tried to conserve trees that were, that big tree that even Chris said, you're not gonna be able to keep it. It's kept, it's there.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this amended order of conditions? Second time and third and final time. Comments before we close?
Yeah, I'd be open to relocating the fence or even a different alternative. I'm not sure I'd go with something like boulders because I don't think those would prevent the type of encroachment we're looking to protect. But, you know, a relocation of it, even if it's something more aesthetic, not as tight necessarily, maybe like a heavy vegetative barrier with a split rail, something that's ultimately gonna make it difficult for somebody to move easily between those two areas.
What is,
Slow.
what does the original order call for?
It calls
Is it
for a
6 foot?
six-foot
Stockade, stockade with a 12-inch gap between the bottom of the fence and the
Right.
ground.
Okay. I think I agree with some sort of barrier. I think, you know, if we can come up with something that's aesthetically pleasing.
Split rail with some vegetative cover.
Because you're just afraid you're not gonna be able to sell this house if you have a 6 foot stockade fence sitting there.
Well, I've talked to just 2 or 3 families that wanna move in.
They're
there,
interested.
And they don't wanna have any part of it where, you know,
Yeah, they don't
like,
wanna
they
look
like
out
to
at the
look at the
wall.
woods, right?
right.
They don't wanna look at a
Everybody likes to
wall.
look at the woods, but nobody wants to, if this is the house, and that's the fence right there, that's what they're looking at. And then they own everything behind it, and beyond that, that other fellow, he's just gonna keep on using it for the rest of his life.
Right. Hmm. I don't know. This one's a tough one because I think the board, I hate to bring it to a vote because I think,
Well, if you did a split rail at the top of the slope, you know,
Mhm.
you had some trees between the amount of clearing and the actual split rail. I mean, at least it would be an open setting.
well, that's what I'm trying to think of something that's very natural looking, that's not a wall.
Right. Right.
Hmm. Suggestions, comments? Do you want to continue and, you know,
Tree stuff, yeah.
What's before us is just a removal of the stockade fence, right?
pretty much?
Yeah, I'd want to see something different than that.
Do you want to continue and let's maybe come up with in the next 2 weeks, just maybe some vegetation, a stockade, I mean, maybe a split
Split rails.
rail or just,
Yeah,
is this going to slow you down or is this?
No, it's not gonna slow us down, and that's not the issue really. It's, you know, even if I had to just stop, it's not a big deal. It's just we want to kind of resolve this. Because, you know, it's aesthetically pleasing out there when you've got woods, and if you put
Right.
a wall right through the middle of the woods, it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's kind of not a very scenic, rural look anymore. It's, and
Yeah, so maybe the engineer can come up with a, you know, there's gotta be a balance there. I mean, we really wanna protect that, you know, vernal pool. You know, you really wanna have that view of the vernal pool, so there's gotta be a solution there that we can come to an agreement on.
Do you think that's something you can do in a couple of weeks? Talk to,
sure, yep.
just kind of.
It won't be me designing it, though.
No, no.
You're not gonna like my design.
But just, you know,
I'll talk to Mr. I'll get Mr. Mossman an email tonight or tomorrow, and
yeah, just see if you can come up with maybe some vegetation or some, you know,
Okay.
just so I think it gives us a sense of, I think, of protection, and, you know, we can put some little signage on if there's a split rail or something like that,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Should I work on some more in-depth signs?
It sounds like you're gonna need enough for your property, but for your abutters. I mean, I think that whatever we do here is gonna actually help future property owners, because it sounds like, you know, this lot 57, if he's gonna keep dumping his stuff, you know, in a vernal pool,
right,
ultimately, you know, you have to come back to the property owner. So it's almost, you have to protect yourself from your neighbors, so.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing that.
I think this board is pretty amenable to some sort of, we get the point. I mean, a stockade fence probably is not the most aesthetically pleasing. If you can't sell a property, that's why you're building it, obviously,
Sure.
so. But we'd like some sort of a barrier, whether it's maybe a combination of, you know, split rail's pretty short and pretty open, maybe some vegetation and split rail or something like that.
Okay, okay.
As long as you don't think it's holding you up and it's not be a problem.
No, it's not gonna hold us up, and, you know, and I think my intentions there, if we did a split rail, is to have a lot of that vegetation that's there stay there. Because, you know, some of those trees are halfway decent back then, and it would actually go through the treed area.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if we'd wanna actually stick it over the bank and start going on a downward slope.
No,
I'll stay on the top side this way.
yeah,
I think that's the best thing to do, right?
Yeah. yeah, talk to your engineer, and
sure.
Okay,
I think we can come up with a plan.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you, folks. So
We'll
July
continue it to our
10th.
next meeting. Thanks, guys.
July 10th.
Was it?
July 10th. That's what I.
Yes, July 10th is our next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, our next hearing, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, be a public meeting to consider notice of intent by Jude Paul regarding the construction of a single-family dwelling, so to stage of driveway and utilities within a riverfront area. Address 99 Granite Street, map 542, lot 9. Do we have a DP number on this?
We just got it half an hour ago.
And then what is it?
1991070.
All right.
Good evening. For the record, Bill Manigan with Hammond Engineering. With me is Jim Seal, the project engineering project. This is an existing lot that was divided from the previous home. There's an existing house on 91 Granite Street, and this lot was created back in 2015. At the time, we weren't involved in the project at the time, but what they ended up getting was a variance because the width of the lot needs to be the frontage between the street and the building. So this is an 80-foot frontage lot. It reduces down to less than 80 feet for this stretch and expands back out. And then at the building line, you need to have a 100-foot width. So those are the parameters of the lot configuration that we're working with. From that, we need to build a single-family home within this area here or beyond or behind it for the purposes of zoning. Utilities for that would be a connection to the sewer line and a connection to the water line. I would presume it would be overhead or potentially underground electrical cable, telephone connections, but those would be from the street, and they would essentially be outside the buffer zone and outside the riverfront. So the wetlands were delineated by Chuck Karen of Karen Environmental Services. He also delineated the annual high water mark. From that established the 100-foot riverfront area along with the 200-foot riverfront area. The 100-foot wetland buffer is in between. This lot is also subject to a flood zone, which is elevation approximately 451 going through the back of the property. Presently on site, it's mainly rough grass areas and a tree line which is depicted on the existing additions. Some trees, from what I understand, were cut in this area here more recently. I don't have the exact date or time when that happened, but it was before our involvement. We were brought in to basically permit this lot when we first did the wetland delineation. We then brought the client back in and said, you're in the riverfront, we need to go in front of conservation for that permit. So with respect to the riverfront area, this lot has some limited protection under the regulations which we've outlined in the narrative, mainly that there is an allowance with the Commission's approval for alteration within the riverfront area of up to 5,000 square feet, as long as a deed restriction is placed on the property that limits the total alteration on the property to less than 5,000 square feet. For the purposes of this review, what we've done is, as it's outlined in the narrative, you have to compare the total amount of riverfront area on the project with the amount of riverfront area that you're proposing to alter as a starting point. So the total riverfront area on the property, which is essentially this area here, because you actually use the property line itself as a boundary, that's 14,927 square feet based upon the calculations. The area that we're altering within the riverfront area is the area outlined in red, which would be the area that is where trees are cut down, grass will be grown, we'll be regrading that area back there. That amounts to 3,467 square feet. As you're aware, the limit typically on the alteration of riverfront area on a lot is 10%, or 5,000 square feet, whichever is greater. In this case, 10% would be 14,000, and this represents 23.2%, but once again, less than 5,000 square feet. However, that's typically on lots that were created prior to the Riverfront Act, or the riverfront area designation within the Wetlands Protection Act. So under 1058 4D1, up to 5,000 square feet of riverfront area may be altered if restrictions outlined in 1048 4C 2B6 are met. That pertains to lots created after October 6, 1997, and as I say, this was created in 2015, as long as they were approved under Subject Control Law, Chapter 41, Section 81K and 81GG. This was approved under Section 81P, which falls in the middle of that, and that plan is recorded in Book 505, page 8 of the Registry of Deeds. So that's what created the actual lot lines. So that's the lot we have to work with. That was once again 2015, so it's beyond the 1997 date. So to meet the requirements, the applicant would need to put a deed restriction on the property not to alter more than 5,000 square feet. And that deed restriction would run with the land. We would put that on record as part of the conditions of approval for the project.
So that 5,000 square feet is not above and beyond what you've already done.
Correct.
Total in that.
Right, they would, and I think that in this particular case, because of the fact that the floodplain is right here,
Yeah.
this is really the limit of what they could do without coming, well, first of all, it's the limit of what they could do without coming back to the commission anyways. But if they wanted to clear more, they would need to maintain elevations throughout that area to make that provision. But we're not proposing that at this point in time. What we're proposing proposing is, this would be our limit of clearing on the property, which is where our erosion control would go. And we're also proposing to actually add the Leominster wetland demarcation signs along the tree line as part of that demarcation to notify the homeowner of that. But once again, the deed restriction would also be placed on the property, and there are other factors relative to other resource areas of the Wetland Protection Act that would need to be adhered to should the homeowner decide to go further into the construction of that on the lot. As part of what we're providing here, as with any riverfront area project, is an alternative analysis of what would you do or what could you do if this was a newer lot, I guess, or an older lot, 1996, 97 vantage point. So we submitted 2 alternative plans, which really don't change a lot of the aspects of it, but what it illustrates is the point of why something else, alternative-wise, would not be practicable or feasible. And these are outlined also in the narrative or attached narrative. So the first thing that we could do is we could take the building, move it outside the buffer zone, outside the riverfront area, so that at least the structure itself would not be in the riverfront area. Okay, that would accomplish, a little less work, no structure in there, less impervious area in the riverfront area. But what ends up happening is that would become a violation of the zoning, so a variance would be required as part of that. One of the stipulations within the variance that was granted, John, can you grab that as in the folder? One of the stipulations that was outlined within the variance that was granted was that the house had to be constructed in an area where it had at least 100 feet of lot width. So therefore, the lot width requirement that's typically noted within the regular zoning ordinance of the city was further enforced as a condition of the variance that was granted on the original lot width condition going through this area here. So we're showing really kind of 2 ways of looking at it. This is technically a street, even though it's unimproved, so the setback to this is actually the full 20 feet. It's not a sideline setback. So that would put violation of that would be into the setback here, as well as the lot width. And it would actually also be a violation of the setback on this side, which is 15 feet. So that's not really practical to do or feasible. If we flip the house around the other way, once again, we would run into a situation where the setback would not meet the front setback. There is a provision within the City of Leominster ordinance that allows garages with uninhabitable second stories to be within 5 feet of the property line, but that's limited to the side and rear of the property line. It does not, it's not allowed for the front setback. So that really would not apply in this location. And at that point, the setback over here would also be violated along with the lot width. So there'd be 3 or 4 different violations that we would need to deal with under zoning that we really can't deal with because of the restriction of the variance that was already issued. Therefore, we feel that this alternative is the viable alternative for both protection of the riverfront area, since it does comply with the provision allowing alteration of up to 5,000 square feet, with the condition that a deed restriction is placed on the property, which the applicant is willing to do. Erosion control will be set out as straw wattles with silt fence around the perimeter. We would have the tree cutting marked prior to doing the tree cutting. The tree cutting would be performed. The erosion control will be installed, inspected before construction activities commenced on the property. And then once the project was done, there would be an as-built done to verify the location of the limit of work. That would be provided with the compliance. Any questions?
Questions?
We got a few. You mentioned placing signs along the limit of work. Are you proposing anything else there?
We're not, but I have a feeling you guys might want like a split rail fence.
And maybe some vegetation too. Yeah, it's pretty tight to the house there in a lot of areas. Someone's very easily going to encroach on that.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem for us to, and I wanted to speak up at the last one, but it wasn't my place. But I think placing a split rail fence with some sort of, what we've done before is put some sort of a thorny vegetation so that the animals go back and forth, but it kind of, the human activity ends up getting reduced in that particular case. So that's, I think, what we would provide. We'd have to find some sort of, I used to use barberries, but I think that those are no longer native species anymore. So we have to use some other like planting along that. And we wouldn't have any problem with that. We probably could show that to the agent prior to construction, just as a condition of that would be a problem.
You said this lot was created in 2015, A&R plan?
With a variance.
With a variance. So how was it cut up? Was it the lot next to it? What was the
This
parent
here.
parcel?
This here, the parent parcel was right here.
Okay.
So just one piece of land. This has since been sold. Both of these lots are not in the original owner's name. They were sold to arm's length transaction parties. So we did take a look at whether we could go back and get more land from the abutter, but they're not under any obligation to do so. So we looked at that as an alternative as well, and we deemed that to be not practical.
So they're different owners now?
They're different owners from each other, and they're also different owners from the original owner when it was divided.
Okay, the deed restriction you referenced has to be placed on the entire subdivision.
Well, that's something that we don't have any control over. So we can't place a deed restriction on somebody else. And I saw that as a DEP comment as well.
Right, that's what the regs require, though. Yeah.
I'm not sure if they do. I would refer to that because it does say the parcel. So I'm not sure if I'm not sure who sent that out, whether that was Judith. Was Judith Nitz sent these out today?
Megan,
Megan Selby. Okay.
Selby, yeah.
So I was gonna call her about that, but we got it late in the day as well. But we really have no ability to place a deed restriction on someone else's property. I will say this, that if this party ever comes in here for alteration that they would want to do, they have the right to do the same exact thing we're doing, okay? And they would then have to be subject to those same provisions that we would be placed on.
Well, that's where I somewhat disagree with you there, because you have to look at the parent parcel at this point. The lot was created after the Rivers Bill. So we can grant 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront for alteration of that parent parcel. You can't come in for a cumulative separate 10% or 5,000 square feet.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why
So
I'm
we
concerned.
can restrict ours to the 3,426 square feet that we have. We don't have any ability to restrict.
But somebody looking at the lot next door isn't gonna see anything on the title. And if that should transfer, they might think, just looking at the title itself, that they can come in and now do 5,000 square feet and might not know this history. That's why I think it's gonna be recorded on the parent parcel.
Okay, you have to explain to me how I would do that.
Right, that's
Because it's impossible.
how I would do it. I would have done that before I sold the lots. That's, yeah.
And once again, we got involved, 3 months ago, so we don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
I think we would be willing to push our deed restriction to be the value of the alteration we're proposing. I don't have any problem doing that. That would allow them, 1,700 square feet of alteration and they would need to be explained that when they come to the commission of why. I can't go and force someone to put a deed restriction on their property. That's not something I can do.
That's up to Alan.
So we would be willing to make our deed restriction 3,467 square feet. So basically no further alteration in the riverfront on our parcel, period. So actually that would be a way to deal with it.
Do you have any comments or question? Okay. I just want to state, obviously, we went on a site walk. We did talk about tree removal and some things like that, so you said they are marked, or you're gonna mark them before you
Yeah,
remove those trees?
we'll demarcate the limit of clearing
Okay,
prior to construction. Probably walk it, verify it, then they'll cut, then we'll install erosion control, then they'll start stumping and grubbing.
Okay.
And start the work itself.
because overall, me personally and the other commissions that were there can comment, I don't think the amount that's gonna disturb is really gonna affect that 200-foot buffer. And I would personally have to say I agree with the way the house was placed, even though it's within the, it would look better. It would look better, I don't think it's really gonna affect
And it
the
doesn't-
resource
It
area.
doesn't
or-
violate the setbacks.
You know what I mean? So I just want to state that I personally don't have any issues with that plan you have as is. We just like to see as many trees left as possible. And we
Yeah,
talked
and
about
I
that.
think that with the restriction, the way we're talking about it, that pretty much seals it. And then,
Yeah,
you know, we can provide, prior to construction, provide a post rail sand detail with planting detail for where that would be planted. Now, it turns out it's right around the same contour, 354. So it shouldn't be that there's a big drop. So the fence should be relatively even going across. It should look okay.
yeah, it's sloped.
Yeah, and I think there's enough room back here for, I know that the prior applicant had, you know, probably less room than this, but I think that
Yeah.
there's enough room on the property for that to work.
We just like to see, because when I walked that, it was pretty conducive to, if you had a guy that liked to cut trees, and you could make the backyard pretty big. So, you know, some
Well-
sort of a barrier, I think, would benefit keeping people out of that property, so.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I agree.
It's,
And that would be, I presume, a condition that would, well, there's gonna be a deed restriction on the property.
right,
And I think what we could also do is probably demarcate that location on a 8.5 by 11 sketch that goes along with it. I mean, not so much forming an easement, but basically drawing this line
yeah,
and saying that's the limit of disturbance of the property forever.
yeah.
I think that would be fine to attach that to deed restriction.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
What were the other comments from the DEP? I know it came in late today. I haven't seen any of that.
The main comment was the same thing that Brad brought up, about the 5,000 square feet on multiple parcels, but we don't really have the ability to do that. You know, so I think that limiting it to what we're proposing is about as best we can do legally in the situation that we're in. If it was still the original owner on the other lot, then I think we have more ability to do that. But the lot has been sold to a third party, so.
Larry, comments?
I mean, it sounds like we need to just look into the riverfront area a little bit
Okay.
more. It just seems like there's a lot of legal things going on. We
Liz,
should try to get some more.
you all right?
We need more time, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna open up to the public. Does anybody like to speak on this NOI? Yes.
I'm Marilyn Murphy,
Can you state your name and address, please?
17 West Davis Street.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You mentioned the house was going to be built where there's a mound of dirt in the back, I believe.
No.
No, it's pretty far up from that. The mound is shown on his plan.
I
If you want
think
to
that-
point it out. There's a rock pile.
There's a
right
rock
there,
pile.
Yeah, there's a rock
Yeah,
pile.
we're
Okay,
in
so
front
it's not going to
of,
be way back
we're in
there
front of
again?
the rock pile. This is the rock pile's right here, so our limit of work is right in front of it, basically. So we'll have grass back here, but the
Because,
house will be
well-
further up.
Not the rock wall, there's like a mound of
Yeah,
dirt
yeah,
where
that's
rocks.
right here.
That's, yeah.
Right, so that's not being touched, unless the commission wants to take it out.
No.
My concern is, I grew up in that house, and I bought the house from my parents, and I've always had nature out there. And I have a pool out there, and I can look over the fence, and I can see foxes and deers, and now I'm gonna see a house.
Or a
That's-
fence.
Or a fence. And it's really frustrating.
Well, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. The landowner has the right to develop their land, just like when you built your house or your father built the house there. He has
That's
the
my
right to do it.
grandfather's land.
Yeah. So, it's a right
And
that
it's
they
gonna be
have.
close to my property.
Well,
Yeah,
it meets
like
all the
houses.
setbacks.
Hmm?
It meets all the setbacks. So it's permitted, you know, by right to do it in that location.
Is it- So is it gonna affect the wetlands? I mean, there's so much nature back there. It's just incredible.
Just as a point of reference, the house basically, the area they're talking about is right around where your pool is. There's a 50-foot strip that's that
Yeah.
Paper street.
Yeah, the old road.
And
yeah.
that's not going to change. There's
Okay.
always, that's gonna remain, so you'll still
Yeah,
have
so
that.
Okay.
this is, we're not building right here. This is the 50-foot strip in between. So I think your fence is in this area here, and your pool's over here, I think?
No, my fence is on the other side. It's not, I look at the woods.
Okay, so, but your pool's back in this area here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So this 50-foot strip of trees, we're not touching that right behind your property. The area we're touching is up on the lot itself.
What are you talking about when you mention a fence?
At the limit of work, they want us to put a post and rail fence, okay, along with some vegetation on the wetland side of it, to basically demarcate it so that the buyer of the property, when they buy the house, knows that they can't go any further than that. And there's also going to be a deed restriction on the property stating that they can't alter any additional riverfront area, and that demarcation on the site is for that purpose. So basically, none of these trees will ever go away by the owner.
Or the river?
Right, so
Well,
nature.
well, it's a
and we
brook
can't-
right
we
now,
can't
but
break- if
boy,
there's a
when it
storm,
rains,
we
it's
can't
a
break the
river.
storm.
Yeah, it's a river.
Brutal,
Right.
yeah.
So, I mean, there may be things that happen that trees go by, but whoever buys this house will not be permitted by regulation or by this order of conditions to cut any of those trees down. If they do, they're in violation.
Because all the trees that are down now have fallen down. In
Right.
fact, the last storm, more fell down. I haven't seen any cut back there.
Well, even to cut anything back there, they would need permission from this commission.
Had your hand raised?
My name is Maria Da Silva. We live at 28 Gustavus Street.
I'm not sure which one. Is that this one here, or
No, it's the
it's on
farm.
the other side?
Yeah, it's,
It's all the way to
Up here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right here, yep.
And our house, we're practically surrounded by the wetlands and right by where, I don't understand this plan correctly, but you can cut me off, but right where you're building going down, we do, help me out, Marilyn, we have a trail for the kids
Yeah.
and our dogs to go by. Would that affect, our trail? How close would that come to our trail?
Well, I'm not sure where your trail is, but if your trail is on the property, then that technically is trespassing. So you don't, no, there's other land down below. So your house is in this area, well, your lot is in this area here. So if you go down towards the wetlands and walk along here, that's city property, I believe.
So it won't affect us
No.
much?
No, we're not doing anything, if you know where that stone pile or the stone mound is, we're not doing anything from there towards the brook.
Okay.
Close they are to us.
Yeah.
How far is the garage from the property line?
20
Does it say
feet.
on it?
Yeah, 21 feet. And then there's 21 feet, then 50 feet.
So there's 71 feet from your property line to the house.
How many feet?
71 feet from the back of their
To
property
this
line
property line.
to whoever's, yeah,
So this property line right here is 71 feet from there to the property line.
to the corner, to
Okay,
the side
it's
of the
50
garage.
feet that no one can touch. Well, I won't say no one, because even you have the right to cut those trees down and build a road if you so choose, but there's really no need. You already have frontage on the other side.
How do these people get to their house?
They're gonna have a driveway right
Driveway,
here,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
right over Granite Street.
Coming from Granite and...
Right. So they're not coming down this paper street to
No.
come in, no.
Oh,
They're coming off of Granite Street, driving right in.
Straight.
Okay.
Because last year they cut down a lot of trees.
Yes, we saw those trees that were cut.
Yeah,
And once again, for the record, before my time.
okay.
So just one more question. Like I said, I don't understand that plan. So the light green is where you will finish building?
Let me give you a better.
I appreciate it.
No problem. So this is Granite Street right here,
Uh-huh.
okay? This, I believe, is one of the driveways to the high school, okay? So there's I believe it's greenhouse
Yeah, it's a
that's right
greenhouse.
here. The grass area to that, where the tree line is on that grass area right now, we're not going any further,
Okay.
okay? So that tree line's gonna stay. The tree line comes back onto the property, and then circles back around in this area here. So we're gonna trim some of the, or cut some of the trees, I'm not gonna say trim, cut some of the trees right along the property line, and then we're gonna cut the trees out in this area right in here. We'll then regrade this area, build the house up in this area here, driveway, sewer line, water line. So this light green area is proposed to be grass when we're done. The wooded area is gonna stay the same, that's not gonna change.
So their lot is where the green, the light green is.
The light green and the dark green is their lot. They own the
Can't
whole
touch.
thing,
Yeah,
correct?
but dark green they can't.
Dark green is what's gonna stay as woods.
As woods, okay.
Okay.
And the fence you're gonna put, are you gonna,
The fence is gonna go right along the edge of the woods, is the intent.
is that gonna affect the animals crossing by?
No, it's gonna be a post and rail fence, so they'll have room to go back and forth. Well,
Oh,
well, if there's deer, they'll jump over.
Yeah.
Yes. There's gonna be some animal that is gonna be in between crawling under and jumping
We see all
over.
types out there, like big
Yep.
deers, and it's so attractive to the area, okay. I see.
Did I answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you so much.
Anybody else like to speak on this notice of intent? Second time and third and final time. All right, I'm gonna leave the public hearing open, and I think there's some
I'll
work.
give Megan a call and tell her what the situation is,
Okay.
and she might need to kick it upstairs. I'll tell her
Okay.
what our proposal is, and see what they say.
And if you can, for the next meeting, hopefully we can get that kind of squared away.
Right.
And just propose what you wanna do for a fence and some shrubbery.
Okay. All right. I will not be here at the next meeting,
That's fine,
so Jim will be here to handle it.
that's fine.
That'll be his first meeting, so it'll be nice.
We'll beat him up pretty good. No,
All
that's fine.
all day he thought he was presenting today, so we told him.
Does any commission members have problems with the placement of the house or anything like that?
No, I think
I mean, on the sidewalk, I think we talked about that, because,
Right.
Chris,
kind of mentioned the things, and we thought it'd be better just as proposed,
okay.
so.
All right, so we'll get in touch with DEP, we'll try to run that at the flagpole and see what they say.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have an answer before the next meeting, if we don't, we'll pass that information on
Yeah.
and kick it out a little.
Okay.
All right.
Other than that, I think we're
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
Chairman, I have one last question.
Sure.
These paper streets, is that city property or is that?
No, and Jeff Avini, who's the attorney that was here earlier, could explain it to you better. It depends upon how the land was conveyed when the original conveyances were made. Back in the day, nowadays, what happens on newer subdivisions, when they convey a lot, they'll convey the lot out, accepting any fee ownership in the street, but giving the person the right to pass and repass over the roadway. Back in the old days, they used to just sell the lot, okay?
Right.
So if they just sold the lot, my understanding, and I'm not an attorney, but if they just sold the lot, then technically this person and this person would own to the center line of the roadway. You have to go through a procedure to actually effectuate that, but the easement would still exist for anybody who was part of the original land development. They would still have the right to pass and repass, but ownership could be sought to the center line of the roadway. If this, for example, was not part of this, if this was on a plan on its own, then this person would own the whole thing. Okay, and there's 50 or 60 other iterations of that depend upon how it is perceived by the courts, but that's a general idea of it. So the city, no, does not own them.
So you can't build a street personal, though.
But if you want to buy it, I'm sure that they'd love to sell
No,
it
I
to you.
got enough. I'll sit there too.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next meeting is July 10th. Great, thanks. All right, and the next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended to be a public hearing to consider an RDA by 37 Mechanic Street Realty Trust 2. Determine if proposed work to demolish an existing attached single-story garage, concrete slab, Install a grease trap within a 100-foot riverfront area in floodplain is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. Address is 37 Mechanic Street, map 16, lot 3. Is there someone representing the applicant?
For the record, Bill Hannigan from Hannigan Engineering. Does anybody have a copy of the 8.5 by 11 plan?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put one up here so you can zoom in on
Oh,
it.
see, Larry, you moved too soon.
I don't know how well you can zoom in on that, but that's the plan. So if you look at the plan, basically, this is over at the old Fenwick building.
Yep.
And this was the
Upholstery,
Upholstery.
Blanchard's upholstery.
Yeah, they did the rooftop renovation,
Yeah.
they did all that stuff like for convertibles and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they did a lot of car stuff. So as part of the reconstruction, the rebuild of 37 Mechanic Street, that building's gonna come down eventually we're gonna be coming in with a site plan showing additional parking in that location. But the purpose of taking this building down now is to install the grease trap, which is for the kitchen flows of the restaurant that's being proposed within the building. Right now, if you've been by, they have been doing some work on the building, but they wanted to make sure that you guys understood that they're not doing any earth removal work at this point in time. There's a lot of asbestos products within the building that they have to take out, so they've taken out some flooring. They were over there today taking down some of the roof materials off the roof to get all the asbestos abatement done prior to doing the full demolition.
So they're gonna demo this building?
No, the red.
Oh, the red. Oh, you're
The red-
talking
only
just the red
was
stuff.
being
Okay, I'm
demoed, yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so the red part on there, unless you don't have a red one, and I can give you a red one if you
That's
don't. Okay.
Sorry.
It is,
Okay.
okay, so that's the red. The old garage is what's being demolished. That's gonna be torn down, the slab's gonna be removed from there, and it's gonna be brought down to a temporary grade until we figure out what we're gonna do with the parking spaces that we're gonna be trying to put in that area. And the reason we're not doing a full nose intent at this point in time is because of the fact that one's timing, two, we're gonna kind of look at what it looks like once it's gone to see how and whether even if parking is appropriate for that area, or whether it may be better off as some sort of alternative space, you know, it might be a patio for outdoor dining, maybe just landscaping. Peter really hasn't decided. So the purpose of this is to allow us to tear the building down, remove the structure, the slab, the foundation, and then to install the grease trap and get the connection taken care of to the city sewer line. Once that's done, the area will be stabilized, and then we'll be moving toward a different plan, which would then be brought to the commission for its approval, should be necessary.
Questions, comments? Yep.
So you're gonna remove the slab, what are you gonna do to temporarily stabilize that before you do any parking or anything in the future?
Haven't really thought about it. I would say it's gonna end up being below grade. I anticipate that being, we could put crushed stone on it or something to that effect. Craig, that sound okay, or? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Do some crushed stone.
I'm just curious with the grease trap, are there any inspection maintenance requirements that the city has for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're under the Board of Health to go through that process to get a permit to actually install it, which we haven't done yet. We're gonna get that's the next permit. So we have two permits we need for that. One will be with the DPW for the sewer connection of another sewer connection out of the building. The second part will be with the Board of Health for the grease trap.
Do you know offhand how often they require inspections of that?
I don't.
A lot of towns have problems with them, that's why
I
I was
think
just curious.
they're required to be alarmed as well. So I'm not sure.
Most cities do.
Yeah. So, but I'm not sure how we would alarm. I mean, it's been a while since we've actually done a grease trap plan. The last one we did was for Mezcal. So we had to go back and try to figure what we did on that one, recreate that. But yeah, that's the process. But there is inspection and maintenance process and protocol for that, yes.
Okay. I'm all set.
Other questions? No?
Now, are you coming just for the building itself, or is it for the building and the grease trap?
Building the grease trap right now.
Alright.
And then once we grade that
Okay.
off and figure out what we're doing on the park, we'll come back again.
Now, those are all, I'm assuming, sealed. Is there anything
Oh, yeah.
special that needs to do in a floodplain? Is there any?
No.
Because it's sealed, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
The DPW might want us to seal, to do gasketed manholes on it, but there are no gasketed manholes in any of the sewer lines along that whole stretch.
Well, I'm just thinking
So-
because you've got, it's a grease trap and it's an area that floods, I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the groundwater probably doesn't get up real high there,
right.
but, all right, I'm not familiar with grease traps, so.
You don't want to be too close to them. Especially when they're empty.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Second time and third and final time? Okay. Other questions, comments? Recommendations? Would you like someone to make a motion? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a negative determination for 37 Mechanic Street for the demolition of an attached garage and the installation of a grease trap with the condition that they stabilize the exposed area with crushed stone.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you, sir. One second. All right, moving on to our regular meeting. Certificates of compliance, Pleasant Street Solar, DP 199-1013. Have you visited the property recently?
I have not, but Mr. Dominguez is actually there this afternoon and had some photos that he shared us. It looks like the growth has increased
Okay.
as well as, it does look like the area underneath where the growth is fairly rocky.
Okay,
So it's not going to be the same lush growth as is around it.
okay. Do you have photos?
Yes, well, I have them on my phone, because I just went there before I came here, so I don't have any printed out, but I can send them all to Angela afterwards, and she can, I mean, I can show them to you now if you'd like. But there's a lot more growth, I don't know how long ago those pictures were taken,
Yeah,
but,
no, Angela, you took these, correct?
Yeah, there's more growth than
yeah,
that
there's more
this
growth than
time.
that on there, yeah. I can show you the pictures if you'd like, so.
Okay. You had a question?
Last time we talked, either the last meeting or the one before that, we were gonna ask the consultant to have the wetland scientist take a look at it and give us the letter certifying that it meets the
That's
performance
correct.
standards.
That was at the last meeting, which was.
Have we reached out to them?
I did reach out to Mr. Dominguez.
I talked to Beals and Thomas, who's the ones that were out on the site to begin with, and they have somebody that can go out there.
Okay.
But I wanted to wait and talk with, with the commission first and find out, based on the growth and everything like that, I mean, is it really necessary to do that?
I would say, in my opinion, it's necessary to get the wetland scientist certification on it. I mean, that's really the starting point typically for us to look at it. They tell us that it meets the performance standards, and we'll go out and check their work, and not backwards.
Okay, I guess I'm just a little confused by
Yeah.
that. I mean, we are having growth there, but you have rocks there, you're not gonna get
Right.
really an enormous amount of growth, only in certain areas that I have pictures of. But, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand why you would have to have somebody certify that. I don't know, I just
Right,
don't
'cause
understand that part.
the onus is really on the applicant to get a certificate of compliance. So we look for the minimum information to satisfy the requirements for a specific order, whether it be an as-built plan that we need, or in this particular case, a replication area. So in a situation like that, the applicant's wetland scientist would go out and just certify that the replication area meets the performance standards. There's been a history here of it not being ready, even when the consultant firm initially requested the certificate of compliance. It mentioned that the plantings either weren't done or they were just done, which indicated at that time when the request was made that the work wasn't complete. So we just want to make sure that we have some assurance that at least your design team thinks it's complete before we go out there and keep looking at it.
Because I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not trying to argue the point with you, but I'm just saying that when the replication area was done, it was completed, and Beals and Thomas, they know it was done. At the time when it was done was in the fall, So at that time, you're not gonna get a lot of growth at the time because of that time of the year.
Right.
But I mean, now, since then, I mean, we are getting growth. I mean, obviously on part of it, you know, it's kind of a dry area, so I mean, if you don't get a lot of rain or something like that there, you're not gonna get an enormous amount of growth there. But, I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot of rocks underneath there too, so
Right.
I mean, you're not gonna get a lot of growth no matter what you do, short of filling it in with dirt, which would kind of defeat the purpose.
It's a wetland replication area though, I mean, it should be consistent in elevation and vegetation with the wetland, correct? So if it's an upland rocky area, is it actually at the correct elevation?
I haven't been out to this.
Yeah, right, that's why-
Paul's been out to it. I've
Yeah.
been waiting for more info from the
And
consultant
that's
before
what,
I look at it.
right, that's what your consultant will provide, they'll provide a
This
document
is- yeah,
says
this
that
is from
the
the
area, the replication,
So those
it
would be
meets the
from about 3
standards,
weeks ago.
it's at the correct elevation. Because the replication area is supposed to be at the same elevation as the wetland itself.
Over there, that'll never happen. It's impossible.
But that's what a replication, you
Right,
fill
no, I
in the
understand
wetland
that
and you
part.
replicate it. So if you haven't replicated the wetland area, then the work isn't complete.
The area that we did was done according to the prints that were approved. So, but if you, I don't know if you've been over there to that area or not, and you've
It's been
seen
like
it.
a while, but like
Right,
that's,
but
but it- yeah.
I'm just saying, the way that whole area is right there, the only way to make everything level is you would have to take out so much, you know, dirt and rock out of there. I mean, you'll never get the elevations that were originally approved on the print because of the way that whole area is. A lot of it comes down here, you have a stone wall that comes across, you know, on like the backside of that replication area and everything too, but the way the whole landscape is over there, it would literally, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I mean, to make everything at the same level, you would have to take out so much of the dirt and rock that's in there. It
But
would
if-
be a lot.
So if the replication area isn't at the right elevation, and it can't be done in that spot, then it might have to go somewhere else. We don't want that replication not to happen.
Yeah, like I said, in some areas, if you look at those pictures, it actually shows you on there, plus some of the ones that I took, you have an area that's flatter in the wetland area, but there's some of it that comes up on a slope, and I mean, it's, like I said, all of that was already, you know, that was approved for that replication area, and what was done over there, that was already approved, not by us, it was already approved by, you know, I don't know if it's from you guys or not, but it was approved that.
Well, the plan gets approved, but if you can't meet the requirement, if you can't match real life to the plan that's approved, then changes have to be made.
Right.
So if you're telling me that you can't do what's exactly on the plan, then we have to come up with a way to make sure that we're still getting our replication.
Well, actually, what I'm saying is it was done according to the plan. Everything, all the elevations, everything is exactly the way the plan was set up. I mean, that's the way it is.
Oh, I thought you were saying it wasn't.
No, what you were saying is everything should be flat, which I understand. I mean, you should have everything at an even plane, but that's not the way it's set up over there, because that's not.
If it was done according to the plan, this board would require the engineer, the wetland engineer or scientist, to certify on a piece of paper that says it was done by the plan, it is installed, it is growing, and as of this date, this is what we have.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what we need to do it, you know, so. And like I said, at the last meeting, I believe that's what our request was to have the,
Yeah, I mean, the regs require 75% indigenous wetlands species. So, you know, looking at the photos, see a lot of areas that look probably short.
yeah. So your engineer and scientist should know. We can't issue a certificate of compliance based on, we think it's gonna grow, and with the stuff got planted, we think it's gonna grow. We actually have to prove that it is growing and that there is vegetation and it's gonna actually go back to the way it was before you guys went in there. Basically all we're looking for. And from those photos, it's obviously not the way it was, so.
Well, I'll send the photos that I have that I took today.
Yeah,
I will
you can send it
those
to Angela.
So you'll see that it's actually, it's more than what's on those pictures, I can tell you
Okay.
that.
And I would
So,
definitely
yeah.
request the engineer to,
I'll be talking to him in the morning, because I had talked to him already, and I told him I was gonna wait until I talked with all of you, and then I would call him in the morning so that we know which direction we needed to go.
okay, very good. Saks Boulevard,
So I did speak with the engineers, everything is done to the green, it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but they did use a survey team to check, to make the as-built, as well as the tree issue. The plans, Whitman Bingham does a lot of work for that area. They had a tree layer on that was from a couple years ago, and one of the trees that was noted missing was taken out years ago, and they're not sure why, but it wasn't done during this project.
okay.
That area wasn't, the trees weren't touched during this project.
Okay. And do we know, basically the area in question,
Was the telephone pole.
yeah,
I'm still getting no call back from Market Basket if they are going to landscaping it. There is grass growing over it right now. They're still working on the water main break last time I was down there, so but it's not touching the area, but there's still grass growing over that area, and the other areas do have grass coming in as well.
okay. So basically the island is growing,
Yeah, the island's growing, where the commissary storage is growing,
Right.
and where the telephone pole is not prettiest, but it is growing.
okay. We had, I didn't bring it with me. We had issue with storage, right?
The compensatory.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be flat and it's.
Did they provide the survey data to us or just say that they did it?
So what they provided was the as-built plan, and then when I went out there and looked from where I was standing taking the pictures, you couldn't really see, but when you step to the side, you can see where it gets flat, and then it kind of curves up rapidly for the commissary storage.
So it looks like it meets the plan?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
when it was explained to me.
Okay. Do we issue, or do you wanna wait?
What's the outstanding issues if there are any?
I have
I
not.
remember it was the trees and the storage was the two issues, so. Any other comments? Anybody would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 98 Sac Boulevard, DEP file number 199-1049.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Extension permits,
None at this time.
do we have any new communications?
I received a complaint this morning from DEP about some work being done possibly in the wetlands in between Kingman Drive and behind Granite Street. Upon further investigation, it was a contracted team that was hired by the high school to remove or repair a pump chamber that was in the parking lot. It was not anywhere near the wetlands. I did measure, my measuring tape was 50 feet, and it was more than 50 feet away from the wetlands, as well as they weren't doing any other disruptive work.
So it was in the parking lot,
Yeah, it was in the parking lot, it was not jurisdictional.
okay. And did you relay that back to DEP or?
I wasn't able to catch her on the phone, but I did leave Miss Selby a message. As well as I did receive a complaint last week about Industrial Drive. There's a lot there. Someone has said that the DPW was filling in some wetlands areas. Upon further investigation, they are not filling the wetland area. They actually were already in contact with the EPA on this matter in February. And it's a non-jurisdictional area.
Okay,
Where's the location of that?
Industrial Drive, right in between the paper store across from Fox Meadows.
When you say it's a non-jurisdictional area, did they get a determination from us on that in the past?
Not from us, but it was from the EPA.
Well,
Different regulations.
EPA, yes, that's a different set of regulations.
Wasn't from us, but it was from Mr. Roseberry sent me paperwork on it, and the way where they're storing it is out of the buffer zone. So it's non-jurisdictional.
You have a file on that?
I have paperwork on it, I don't have a full file on it.
Okay. Yeah.
We've had a lot of activity down there that we've dealt with over the years. So, because there's railroad tracks down there, there's lots of wetlands around the railroad tracks and they kind of sprawl out, and there's been a lot of clearing and excavation in those areas.
It's a snow storage area, and it's basically just where the snow storage goes. And unfortunately, what it seems like is that there's a lot of noise coming from trucks parking that area overnight, and that's what kind of sparked the complaint.
And that was on industrial.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else new? Minutes from May 22nd, 2018. Did we get those? We got them, I reviewed them, I know that. I just couldn't remember which ones we got, so.
I sent them right before the last meeting.
Did you? Okay. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Any comments or questions?
I didn't actually get a chance to review those, so I can abstain from voting if need be.
Okay. I know I reviewed them if you said them.
I think that was the one. Yes.
You may have missed it, so I don't
Yeah,
see
I
any
can't.
quorum to open them on the next meeting. Huh?
You weren't here for
I
that.
don't think you were here for that one, so. We'll
I
wait.
apologize for that.
That's all right, we'll wait. Put them on the next meetings. New business, Hill Street. Discussion on the status of area to keep maintaining as a meadow, possibly putting in a parking lot, posting of hunting signs on the property. The lot's 520-1. So at our last meeting, we spoke about how it was an existing meadow. In the past, we've had DPW had cleaned it and kept it as a meadow. You said there was some growth.
Yeah, the
Kind of
birch.
encroaching.
Yeah, the birches have always been coming in, so they would clear the metal, but over time, they just cleared a
It
smaller
just
and
keeps
smaller
smaller
area.
and smaller, okay.
So if we want to maintain it as a meadow, we have to consider having them go up with some.
And actually cut
Yeah,
those
they have like these
encroaching.
bigger brush hog things or whatever, where they can cut a lot of that down or whatever they use.
Okay,
It's just a matter of whether or not the commission determines that that habitat's worth, maintaining. We could either just keep maintaining that smaller amount, or we could, do a little maintenance every 5-10 years to maintain the size, or,
when was the last time you've been up there?
It's been a while. The last time, it's probably about a couple of years ago.
Couple of,
But no, it would have been like last summer. And the birches are starting to get a lot bigger, so it's like if we don't do it now, then they're gonna
We
get
might
too big
lose
for
it,
that,
yeah.
for that equipment. They'll say it's too big for that.
Okay. I mean, personally, I think we have enough wooded areas. I think it would be good if it was an existing meadow. I personally would agree to keep it as a meadow.
This is a pretty big parcel, is it not?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's.
It's been almost.
Couple of-
But the metal portion is just a small part of it.
Yeah, I don't know how many, maybe like 6 acres.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's not like it's a tremendous amount,
Yeah.
but it's,
Now, I keep saying DPW, did they charge us in the past? Did they just go up and do it?
they used to do it for free, then one year they charge, it kind of changes from year to year. I think it depends on the timing.
Have they always done it? Or
Yeah.
did they've always
Yeah,
done it?
they've always done it.
Okay.
So they typically do it in like September, when, after the, once the birds that would normally,
Right.
nest in those areas have, already,
Grown up
moved
and
on.
flown away.
Yeah, that's when they would mow everything, and occasionally one time we had them go up and they had these like brush hog things that they really scoured it because we had waited too long.
Okay.
And, again, it's gonna get, those trees, are an issue, so we'd have to figure out what we wanna do there. Maybe the DPW could look at it and give us recommendations. What,
Thoughts? What would you guys like to see?
I'd like to see it mowed.
Keep it- What about kind of encroaching small birch? Should we kind of
Take them out.
take them out and leave it as a meadow?
Yeah, if it's nesting habitat, I think we should save it.
Yeah, I would think I'd agree with that, so. do we want to ask DPW to do that this year?
It's tough now because now, I mean, we're maintaining it as it'd have to be in the fall.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
But, you know, say, hey, can you put this on your schedule to do, you know, sometime after September 1st or
Yeah.
something like that? Angela, can you talk to DPW, your friends over there, and tell them, and Larry, I don't know, I know you're pretty, in the 8 years I've been here, every year you kind of bring it up,
Yeah.
so maybe you can go up there and maybe mark
Yeah.
out some of the trees that you think have been kind of encroaching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you can,
You know,
see
it's been,
what-
I think I went up there once when I first got
Yeah.
on the commission, but, you know.
and
maybe
I'll,
if you
I'll
could-
reach out to Joanne Donardo. She's the one that helped get it started, because they did that, like I said, at Shoreland Farms.
Yeah,
And they even got a grant for it, but it was a larger piece of property, but
yeah,
where they got money to actually mow it and maintain it.
yeah. No, I think it's good to keep it mowed. Maybe, I'm afraid that's what, if we don't cut the trees, it'll just, sooner or later, it'll just become woods and
Yeah.
different species, so.
Because, yeah, when it reaches a certain point, and then there's not enough protection for the birds, then
Right.
the predators are close enough to the nest that they're not gonna stay there anyway,
Right,
so.
right. So, yeah, maybe if you wanna, maybe we'll go up and mark some of the trees, put a ribbon on them, saying, I think these, and then if you could reach out to DPW, tell them to put it on their schedule, and hopefully they'll do it for free. Tell them we don't have a big budget. Possibility of putting in a parking lot and the posting of hunting signs on the property. Currently, what's there for parking? I know there was like an entrance,
There's a grass area, there's actually nothing.
there's nothing there,
Yeah.
and there's a kiosk there
Yeah.
with some information on it.
Actually, I
correct?
don't think there's much of anything. I don't think we ever did much with it.
But there was,
Yeah.
does the little kiosk still exist?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right, and currently there's a no hunting sign there.
This entrance, it says,
At this entrance, there's a no hunting sign. But hunters are allowed on this property, correct?
correct.
As long as they're outside of the 500 foot for if they're using a gun and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, but
But they're
that's,
allowed on this property
Yeah.
and this and that, okay.
it's not an enforceable sign, I don't think we have any legal authority to.
To enforce it, okay. All right, because I know in the past we talked about taking that sign down, because, didn't you say some of the money come from
Yeah, because we had,
originally?
when we originally talked about doing the sign, there was discussions that it was paid for, through the money, raised from selling, hunting permits,
Oh, okay,
so.
okay. Comments, thoughts on parking and signage?
Go ahead, no. The parking to me is not really, until people really start using it and we see a need for it, they can park along the road for now.
Okay.
But that is something that we discussed in years past was, actually we had, I think it was Greg Day, he was a contractor and he said it wouldn't be a lot of money to just put some stone down and have like a space for like 2 or 3 cars. to
Yeah,
park.
yeah.
But we kind of decided not to do that.
So right now, if people want to go through that meadow in that area, they basically just park on the side of the road,
Yeah.
on that property, basically.
Yep.
And they could just walk in.
Yeah.
Okay. Brad?
Just on the no hunting sign, I don't think that we should take the position where we regulate hunters. That would be Fish and Wildlife on the state level and the local level, the police department, if anything. I think if we have large open space lots and hunters want to use it, I think they should have the right to do that.
Okay. So currently, there's a sign there, and that was put up by, who do you remember put that sign up?
It was the commission, I believe. I don't think we paid for the sign, I think the DPW or the city did. But
Okay,
we put, the commission put them up.
okay.
And I would say, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago.
Okay. Do you know the reason why the signs were put up?
The neighbors were concerned with people with guns, near their home. So I
Okay.
think that was the big concern at the time.
Okay.
But, yeah. But that's what I recall. I don't recall there being like an incident that happened or anything specifically.
Okay. Anybody in the audience here would like to speak about this? Is there a neighbor? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm an abutter,
What's your last name?
Flynn.
Steve Flynn?
Yeah.
And what's your address?
178 Hill.
Okay.
I was there when the commission did the original proposal. At the time, this was something that was proposed. There was concern with the firearms in the neighborhood. City councilor, ward councilor, Robert Salvadelli was part of it. He had done a pretty comprehensive survey on the number of people, the demographic, the area, how the land has changed over the years. This was presented purely as a public safety issue at the time. There were a couple close calls up there with hunters, with people in their yards. There were reports of people's homes being hit by ammunition from whatever they may be over the years, many years. One of the concerns that came up with this was not to keep the hunters out of that property, kind of to promote a buffer zone to keep people, the meadow that you just talked about clearing, because the homes are in such close proximity to that meadow. They are within within that 500-foot range with little buffer in between. That's kind of what prompted the whole topic to come up. And one of the concerns that was proposed at the time was making sure that hunters weren't landlocked from being able to use those properties. At the time, they pulled all the maps and looked at all the information, and it was determined because that property is in such easily accessed from Elm and Wachusett Street, it's basically a stone throw. You know, trying to take the firearms out of the neighborhood, trying to prevent the accident from happening. At that time, the entire commission was involved, and there was a very comprehensive process done with this. I apologize, I don't remember the names of the people that were involved, and unfortunately, like everybody else, I lost a nice audit trail I had through cyber loss. One of the conservation representatives, it may have even been the head of the committee at the time, had brought this specific topic to, I think it's the state level that you guys report to. The individual who took it to the state was told that the state is very well aware of such circumstances, and that the local commissions had an obligation to try to create a safe and secure environment for abutters, and the biggest concern they had was making sure it wasn't landlocked. I apologize, I'm not much of a public speaker. Came to the commission, went for a vote. Couple of the other commission members at the time had taken this to the Leominster Sportsman's Club, one of the board of directors. They wanted to make sure that everybody did have a fair and equitable vote in this process. They did mention this parcel, and the board of directors at the Sportsman's Club had even said that they were in full agreement that, you know, the firearms really didn't belong in the neighborhood, and the hunters really didn't belong in that field. There was a public hearing on the properties. The neighbors showed up, some other people showed up, and everyone was pretty unanimous that this was pretty much the right thing to do. There was a public hearing through the commission at the time. During the meeting, it was talked about That's all we're trying to do here is eliminate hunters from parking along those two entrances on the Hill Street properties. Posting of signage, and the other thing they were trying to do is designate like a buffer zone. So the people who might use the properties from Elm or Wachusett Street, coming back over the hill, there was discussion about putting signage up so that they reached a certain point, they were aware that there were homes on that other side of that meadow that you guys have, been talking about clearing. The signage was posted on the properties. I mean, the whole thing, went out for a vote. It was unanimous. It was a full table of conservation reps at the time. There was discussion also about putting something where the kiosk is, like a color-coded map, just to let people know that they could hunt, from those other locations. They were just trying to keep it out of that neighborhood. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Ward councilor was here tonight, but he had to step out, and I know he had talked to some of the people that were here before his time, and I know he would have loved to have been heard tonight because he's in agreement with the way things were done the first time and trying to preserve the safety and security of the neighbors up there. So I know the people that are new to the commission, I know Mr. Giannakis was part of the forum at the time. It kind of sounds like those signs were just like fell from the sky or put there, but this was a really in-depth process, and the intent here was making sure it was done fairly. There was no attempt to take anything away from anybody. In fact, after the process, a number of people had come forward and commented that this was absolutely the right thing to do. You may have prevented an injury, saved a life. The hunters still have the ability to use those hundreds of acres that are up on that other side, so.
I guess my thought on this, and I've only been on the board for 8 years. If hunters come onto those properties from the other side, you're still at danger.
Well, that was the intent of, it was agreed that signage was gonna be posted, like at the top of the hill, where the meadow goes up, then the land increases up, and the commission was gonna post signage up there to bring attention to the fact that safety signage, so that people, didn't, and being living there a long time, things have been working well. There haven't been any problems. Everything's been really well with it. And that was brought up, what's to prevent people from coming over the top of the hill, and that's where the color-coded maps that they had talked about, just to bring attention to some of the other parking areas and places people put in. That's going to be a risk no matter where you go or what you do, but this kind of was purely a public safety issue. I think the strongest point was when the state that you guys report to was in full agreement that the local conservation committees have an obligation to protect people that are abutters in such situation, because it is pretty tight up there. So.
Comments?
Just one comment, I don't think that this was, must have been obviously more, it must have been while I was acting as the agent, I'm guessing. Because I didn't feel comfortable with that at the time as a conservation. I don't think it's an enforceable sign. I mean, if conservation puts up a sign that says no hunting this entrance, we have no ability to fine, we have no resources to go out and enforce.
Right.
The police department isn't going to honor, it's not a city ordinance, it's not a police, I don't know how those things happen, but we don't have the jurisdiction to enforce. Like, it's just like saying, whatever it is, we can't actually stop somebody from doing what's on that sign. We don't have, it's out of our jurisdiction, we don't have.
Well, at the time, the research was done. In fact, I thought it was you that had contacted the city solicitor, and the attorneys did say that the commission had every right to do this, and I believe, and I thought it was you, had an action item to go back to the city solicitors and was supposed to have this written into the deed. So, you know, the other piece was there was some research done and the land was purchased, and please don't quote me on this because I'm kind of paraphrasing, I think it was listed as a self-help grant. So I know there was talk about purchase with the funds from hunting and fishing licenses.
Mhm.
It was, I guess, the way the land purchase was made at the time, it was stated that they did have the right to make this an enforceable. And in fact, somebody had an action item that they were gonna go back and have them put this into the deed, so it could be an enforceable. I don't know if it ever happened, I wouldn't go check on something like that. If we could find the meeting minutes or the films from the tapes, it was pretty comprehensive. I mean, this stuff was all really well laid out. I know one of the things that is commented oftentimes, even from the Department of Fish and Game, is, you know, they pretty much say if there's no signage up there, there's nothing we can do about it. So it's, you know, kind of case in point where
But
you're
there's
saying
nothing.
you can enforce it, but they're saying they can't enforce it if there's nothing, there's no signage or anything there. So it's,
I guess personally, and I'm not an attorney, I don't know of any way we can enforce. We put the sign up because we own the property as the Conservation Commission in the city. I agree with Mr. Giannakis, like, if a hunter parks there and walks into the meadow and up through the woods with his gun, we can't issue a ticket that I know of. Yeah, go ahead.
If I may, I don't think the real question tonight was can we enforce it, such as do we want the sign there or not?
Yeah,
I mean, they're two different things.
okay. But if this land, and again, the history behind it, I'm just getting, Ms. Giannakis has been here a little bit longer than I have, seems like with having a sign there that says no hunting, we're discouraging hunting in this area, but that's where the funds came from. So I have kind of a problem with.
You're allowing, there's still ample acreage to put in other places. There's still many hundreds of acres there. This is just a very small, that one piece, so. No, I apologize, I don't understand. You know, I'm sitting there as an abutter who was part of this in the first part, and the committee at the time, it was very fair and equitable. It was a unanimous. We had, you know, the city councilor was part of it. There was supposed to be items put in place, action items taken. You know, my head's spinning a little bit, so.
To me, the land, that's one of the uses of the land.
Right.
That's the purpose. That's like saying no snowshoeing this entrance, no hiking this entrance. I mean, you're limiting one of the acceptable uses of the
that
property.
land, correct.
Well, I think you're not really talking apples for apples here. I mean, people snowshoeing and mountain biking and walking, if an accident happens, no one is affected by it. When you have firearms, accidents happen, there can be fatalities and.
I would agree with that,
Yeah.
and the state law says you can't shoot a firearm within 500 feet of a house
Mhm.
anywhere in this state,
Yeah,
unless you're a police officer, I believe. So limiting where the people park could be discouraging them from using that area. I personally had a hunter last year fire within 75 feet of my house because I abut 500 acres of conservation land. How he got in there, I don't know, but so I have a problem with saying hunters can't enter in this entrance. And I think it's a little bit more unsafe, me personally, if they come in from another entrance, because if you ever, I'm sure you've walked in the woods, if you don't know if there's a house 200 feet or 300 feet, if you came in that entrance, you'd know where those houses are.
Yeah, well, like, it did go up to the Sportsman's Club, the board of directors, they talked about it, and they were all in agreement that they just kind of, at the time, strongly felt that it doesn't really belong in that one location, and there was plenty of room. They didn't feel they were being deprived of anything by
But they're
going a few miles.
not the
down.
only ones using it.
I also don't recall there being, I recall there being people from the Sportsman's Club that were upset that they weren't able to access city land,
Right.
you know, for,
Is it worth looking into the history at all?
I think we can. You know, I mean, my feeling is we have open land and open conservation land for the use of all citizens, and like you said, whether it's hiking and fishing is allowed, so
Well,
I would like to
yeah.
do a little research to figure
Right.
out.
I mean, my thoughts are, you know, if there's documented cases, if there's police reports of homes getting hit, for instance, or if nobody at the Sportsman's Club cares, if nobody else in the area cared, then it may just be a moot point. Even but if what Larry's suggesting, like it offended some hunters or other things happened, you know, we gotta look at it from that end too.
Right.
So, where one of the committee members at the time had brought it to the state, I don't know what the next level that you guys go to get your information from. That was very well documented, that they had commented that the local commissions have the right to enforce, to safe and securely protect people that are abutters in such situation. I mean, that was a directive that was part of the meeting at the time. That was the action item that came back, is you guys did have the right to enforce that. In fact, they encouraged it to protect the abutters.
You know more about the laws than I, but who we would answer up to, what you're talking about, is DEP. This, no.
They wouldn't be involved with this at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is this is local city land under the control of the Conservation Commission. So really, when it comes to this, there is no state agency that I can think of. Most of the time, what we deal with is DEP. DEP has no jurisdiction over this. Because this is.
Yeah, I'm not making this up. I
No.
mean, this was all, I mean, like I said, I remember this all like it was yesterday, so.
So, yes,
If I may,
Yeah.
coming from both sides here, I completely agree that we shouldn't be discouraging a completely legal activity, especially if we haven't contacted anyone from that community to kind of see what the feel is. As someone growing up hunting, I don't, when you see a no hunting sign, you don't hunt there, but you also, the laws, the rules as
Right.
well. You have to get a license to go hunting, like you're not going into it blindly.
mhm.
But if there is more history on it, I think we should look into it before we make a decision. But my recommendation is we shouldn't be discouraging a completely legal activity. But if there are police reports, as you've said, people's houses being hit, there being close calls, I most definitely want to see those first.
No, I would definitely agree with that.
can the police look things up by like, I'm sure they can pull up a report of
Address,
by
I can give
address
them
or
a call
something?
and take a look at that area and see if I can meet with the chief or someone.
Okay.
See
Yeah.
what I can do.
let's just get some more history behind it and see what.
But on the enforcement issue, the person who would be enforcing on behalf of the Conservation Commission would be me, and I don't have any police training. I don't have the ability to write someone a ticket. That's not something that's in my jurisdiction.
mhm.
So that would go to the police if there was, an issue.
Well, that, I think that was what the recommendation was, where if there was signage there, whether, the local PD doesn't really, it's more the Department of Fish and Game are usually the ones that enforce that, but, they have already said if there's no signage there, there's nothing we can do about it. If there's signage there, we can go up and we can tell the people that, to refrain from doing that. Could the PD, cite someone if they parked there and entered with a firearm? I don't, who knows? So.
But we
I-
don't want to stop people from parking in front of, we want
Oh,
people
no,
to use
no,
that.
I get that, but it was, this would help take the firearm aspect of it out of the neighborhood. I mean, I mean, there's people that use it now, they do it, they snowshoe, they bike, they walk, they hike, it's, you know, it's awesome, it's great, everybody loves it. You know, it's that one element, and this is, you know, this is not a, I don't want to make sure we're clear, this is not an animal activist thing, this is purely public safety, that's how it was. I mean, everybody and their brother was in agreement that, you know, that was the right thing to do at the time. So,
Okay.
you know, I know there has been, the PD has been up there quite regularly over the last couple months about, you know, firearms up in the back somewhere, but I don't know if they can figure out where it's coming from or who it is.
Okay. Do you have a contact or somebody you can,
I have a few I can contact.
over, just to see if we can get some history behind it and,
Yeah, I know it's,
Yeah,
as well, so.
I want to say Cudahy was on the board, Greg Day was on the board. I think I confused was it Joanne? Is that the?
Yeah,
Joanne's agent.
Yeah, I think one of the gentlemen that was referenced in the conversation earlier, I can't remember the name, he was sitting like right over here. He was an avid outdoorsman, and you know, he was.
No, it would have been before mine.
Yeah, it was like 05, 07, somewhere around there, so.
And I can get in touch with I know the Sportsman's Club, because I talked to the president there and see.
Yeah.
Because I know in the past that there was a couple of people from the Sportsman's Club that were upset that, and I remember at the sidewalk, basically if you look at like where your house is, there's two entrances. There's an entrance here and here. We've actually only posted one of the sides. But basically they were saying, well, you have the right to hunt on that property because you can just go through your backyard. But no, I can't access public land to get to the hunting area, you know, to hunt.
because you need to carry a gun through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an argument that was brought up, that it doesn't prevent everybody, it just prevents.
Some people.
It doesn't prevent like if you lived across the street, you couldn't hunt in those woods. But if you lived, where that gentleman there lives in that house, he's saying, well, you could walk through your
through.
backyard because you're not going through that entrance, you're going through your property. But I live across the street and now I can't access the property.
Well, one thing to keep in mind through this whole process too is you're still minimizing the risk. You know, keep in mind with social media and a lot of other, you know, word starts getting out and next thing you know, you have 20, 30 people up there who aren't familiar with the neighborhood, you know, so, I mean, I 100% get that, you know, but if you're minimizing it and you're reducing the risk, it could be a life saved, you know. I understand both sides, believe me. You know, and I understand firearms, I understand firearm safety. You know, I can tell you for a fact, you know, we've seen some unsafe firearm practices in the neighborhood, which is, it's frightening. I mean, I have kids and I saw something that was absolutely horrifying one time. You know, we're just trying to minimize. We're not taking anything away. There's, like they said, you can still access from, it's less than like an eighth of a mile. You're in your car, you drive around the corner and you're in safely, and it protects the people that are at the backside of that land.
So we will contact DPW and see if we can get that maintenance on the meadow taken care of. And if you would like to speak with the Sportsman's Club, Larry, if that's all right with the rest of the commission.
Maybe we can get somebody from them.
Yeah.
Maybe a representative from them.
What was that again? I'm
Just
sorry,
get some
I
information.
missed
I'll
that
also
one.
look into the town
We're
bylaws
just saying
and
we'll
hunting.
we'll see if we can get somebody from the Sportsman's Club to come in to discuss it. But then, when, you know, as someone to come and, you know, discuss their point of view. We'll bring in, you know, to get the police reports of the incidences that were reported in the area.
And
We'll
maybe
bring it all
engage
together into a future meeting.
the chairperson that was on that, you know, some of these action items, you know, maybe they can talk better. I apologize if I'm using a wrong acronym, or, I mean, there was, you know, maybe getting someone else that may have a more vivid memory. I know the names or some of the things that were discussed. I'm sure the meeting minutes are out there somewhere.
Yeah, we have a whole collection of them, but anyone who is formally, you know, on the board, they're not required. We can certainly invite them, but they may not
Right.
want to.
Well, maybe
they
you
may
can
not
find
be
the
able to.
minutes, and the rest of the committee will find that helpful. But I can't say it enough. It it was overwhelming that everyone felt it was the right, that's why this kind of has people's heads spinning is, what are we doing here?
Anybody else like to speak on this? All right,
Sorry I took up so much time.
it's all right. So we'll do our due diligence and we'll talk about it at the next meeting. But in the meantime, let's get on their schedule, hopefully this fall.
They were up there in the fall, they did some clearing,
Usually we have them do it every so often.
Yeah.
but I think if we're losing the meadow, we should have them cut down. Maybe if you're
Yeah.
out and about, you can maybe
Yeah,
mark some of the trees.
mark some of that, yeah, because it's a good set, so we can kind of make a, as far
Back
back as
to
we'd like to go.
where it goes, so it's a meadow. So
Yeah.
we have that wildlife there. So, okay? Yes,
If I may make a motion, no one's here representing for our old business. If I make a motion, at least skip over to the enforcement. I do know we do have some people in the audience here for that.
okay.
so we're, next meeting, will be-
Yeah, we're gonna do some due diligence, and right now, the only thing we're gonna act on is the maintenance on the meadow.
Yeah, okay, thank you,
Yeah, July 10th,
thank you.
yeah, we'll do the next meeting.
All right, 141 Lincoln Street, filling the resource area.
So I did provide you with pictures of the site. I received a complaint from someone in the neighborhood of machinery in the wetlands. Upon investigation, I had a hard time locating it. I did find a company that was building a pool in an area that was not jurisdictional. I spoke to the people. They said they weren't doing any work. I then ventured down further into some properties and I spoke with a gentleman, Mr. Cosenza's site, who's his son, who informed me that they were allowing the pool company to dump on their property some fill in the back. Upon further investigation, I went back and talked to the pool company. They did confirm that they were dumping, as you can see from the pile, there's about 9 piles in that area.
But they were not the people that were building the pool.
They were not the people building the pool. They were not aware.
And is this jurisdictional?
It is, there are wetlands in that area, and when you look at the area, you can see the leaves that haven't been decomposing in the soils. It was wet when I was there.
What's that?
That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, I just,
Mr. Chairman, I was on the site as well, you can see me in one of the photographs.
is that you?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so
that's
you've been
Yeah. There's a lot of fill wetlands.
a lot of fill wetlands?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we know the extent of what was filled, I guess? From GIS map?
I tried to use the GIS maps. While the GIS does, say there are wetlands, it's hard to see with the trees above. I tried to find some ortho images. I was really unable to find any.
Okay,
But from talking with neighbors, there has been work going on in that area for several years.
okay.
Work on this lot for several years?
And that's the gist of it, yeah. A lot of machinery, a lot of trucks in and out.
It looks like it's not just dirt,
Looks like there's some patio pavers as well.
and this is like, who's that?
Crushed
Looks
stone.
like crushed
Dark.
stone, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks
okay.
bituminous on the picture, but it's more of a crushed stone material.
Okay, because it almost looks like asphalt.
Yeah, it's like crushed.
There appears to be a lot of old filling that would go back a year or two in time, and there was somewhere between 7 to 9 loads of fresh material the day I was there.
I had to stop the truck.
Seven to 9 loads, fresh, meaning very, very recent, and then some of the stuff looks older.
It hadn't been rained on, so
Yeah,
it was
and
that fresh.
Like this obviously looks relatively old.
Yeah.
And there's
And then
But
those
when
other
it's- they're
pictures
going
were,
over
yeah,
the ledge.
stuff growing.
yeah,
on
this
it.
stuff's brand new. Okay.
And I spoke to the pool company, they said they maybe put in 5 to 7 loads. They weren't.
Which hence it wouldn't, okay. So, what's the enforcement say?
the cease and desist and to come to the meeting tonight. I do see they are here in the audience.
Okay.
To discuss further action.
Okay.
After speaking to, I did speak to the homeowners after, they were unaware that they weren't allowed to do that as well.
Okay.
Do you have a copy of the order?
It's on the computer.
Okay.
I think I thought I sent it out to everyone in an email.
Who is in the audience is here from this property? Yes, sir. Are you the property owner?
Yes, I am.
All right.
I was unaware that we were unable to put fill in that area. And we wasn't trying to put fill in the wetlands. That's the person that dumped it in the overbank and into the wetlands.
Okay.
The fill was actually there to be, it was the fill in another area that's about 75 to 80 feet away from where they were. Just that I had to strip I was gonna strip the growth there first and then put the fill in and then put the loom back on top of it. But it's a moot point now because I didn't realize it couldn't be within 100 feet of the wetlands. So it's
So all of
just,
this is within 100 foot of the wetland?
right,
What-
some of it is, yeah.
How much material is here?
There's probably about, they dumped 9 loads. I mean, any of the other material has been there for years. It's been, was there for a long, probably 20 years, a lot of it. But I never exceeded where, in other words, there was a place where it was a flat area, and what we had done is we had put material on top of that flat area. I never had gone into the wetlands. The only pile that really went into the wetlands was 2 of the loads that they had dumped. They were supposed to be dumping it 50 feet further away from that where they put it in. I wasn't there at the time.
Comments?
I think we kind of need to determine the resource area itself
Mm-hmm.
before we can.
That might be tough.
It's
And
kinda-
then you do that by pulling the material out of there,
Yeah.
getting to the line.
To getting down to what? But, I mean, just going to the site, you're not gonna know.
No.
That's why I was wondering if there was any
Yeah.
historical GIS type stuff that we could at least start with.
Well-
GIS states as a wetland, but it's really hard to actually physically see down and see what the
Right.
changes are.
Right, right,
The thing you gotta understand with GIS, if it shows up as a wetland on GIS, it's a wetland.
right.
But what it doesn't typically show is how much wetlands are there. Sometimes it can be exactly that amount, sometimes the wetlands can go well beyond what's shown on GIS.
Right, right.
Yes, I don't know if you can see in the pictures, there was some wetland obligate species in there, but I didn't pull any samples or anything. I was
Right.
kind of up to the commission.
Pictures are fairly obvious.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we need to figure out where the wetland line is, first and foremost. The only way is to get material out of there, correct?
So I think you update the enforcement order. You require that you get a wetland scientist involved overseeing that activity and give them a timeline to perform the work.
Okay.
And then if they want to leave any fill in the buffer zones, I think you should be filing for that.
Well, yeah.
If you want to restore everything to the way it was, then do it
Right.
in the enforcement order, but
Okay. So what's the enforcement just says cease and desist currently?
Yeah,
Just
cease
stop.
and desist letter, until we're able to evaluate further as a commission.
Okay. All right. You're gonna have to hire a wetland scientist, and you're probably gonna have to remove a bunch of fill. So, we probably need to update the enforcement first.
We can do that tomorrow.
And I would work with Angela and she can help you down the path of how to start, and we'll kind of go from there. So, yeah, and then you can kind of keep us abreast of it, and then basically any work that was done within 100 feet has to come in front of us. So this whole parcel, unfortunately for you, is under our jurisdiction. Sounds like pretty much everything there was. So we're gonna have to either, like Brad said, either you're gonna have to remove everything and return it back to the way it was 25 years ago or whatever, or at least find where the wetland is, and then anything in that 100-foot buffer, we're gonna have to talk about what you need to do with it. So I would, at this point, suggest, and correct me if I'm wrong, to update the enforcement, and I would work, Angela can get you a few names of some people and steer you down the right direction of how to start the process, and we'll go from there. So, comments?
I missed that last part. Did you say recommend people?
No,
Oh.
just, his 5 people or
recommend people, but
whatever, send her some right directions of,
Okay.
no, not
No,
recommend
right.
people, but,
All right. I think we
If someone said to me, aside,
Yeah.
give them a list of 10 people saying, these 10 people that, whatever.
Do we want to set a timeline for that?
But that's up to the commission.
It should be sooner than later. I mean, we wanna give this an opportunity to grow back, you know? We don't wanna wait till the fall and have it.
30 days.
I know some people are busy right now, and it is the summer, so you're not gonna get it early now, but I was thinking 45 days.
45 days.
Get it out of there and then have time to start getting things established for the growing season.
Yeah. If 45 days that's fine. I'd say 30, so I do. 45 days is fine. Do we need to vote? Are we good? We do, okay. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we update the enforcement order for 141 Lincoln Street, requiring the property owner to remove all of the fill placed within our jurisdictional areas within 45 days, and to also retain a wetland scientist to oversee that activity and report to the commission.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you.
Question?
I would like to maybe add, and I was trying to add for you, so, maybe giving me 24-hour notice, just so if there was
Thanks for
work
that.
in the field, I'd be able to, I would know what was going on.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Do you have a form that we can sign to ratify that tonight?
No, I do not, I would,
Okay. We should all sign that before it goes out to formalize that, so.
I will work on that,
You
and I'll,
can either print it, you like print a blank form tonight, or just call us in or something.
yeah, I have one on my computer. I'll
Okay.
print it out on it.
They're not official until they've been ratified by all of us, so.
Okay. Perfect. Is there anybody else in the audience that we need to?
103 Exchange Street, and I believe Hannigan Engine, maybe up to 103 Exchange Street, and
Okay.
then 1145 Central Street as well.
Okay. So 103 Exchange Street, alteration of the riverfront area.
This
What's
was
going on?
This was originally brought to me about a month or two ago by one of the commission members. Someone had been doing some work in the yard with a bobcat. Upon site investigation and the conversation with the owner, they had used their son's bobcat that they own, it's on their property, to remove a shed that had fallen in and needed to be removed. And they had cleared some of the poison ivy as they were extremely allergic to it, so they were unable to do it by hand. At the last meeting, it was asked me to investigate further as the clearing has gone farther than what had been explained. I provided an image of the site I took from the road, as well as I did send out a letter to them to cease and desist and come before us tonight.
Okay. Has any commission members been to this site besides Angela, or visibly witnessed this?
I've been by it.
Okay. How close is the river to this?
I'd estimate about 60 to 70 feet.
Where in relation to this picture is the river?
It would be on the left-hand side.
The
Be down
left-hand
here.
side, yeah.
Does the lawn go to
The lawn pretty much goes to the embankment of the street.
probably a small little buffer, but other than,
Yeah.
I would say probably close to it.
huh?
I would say, my measurement would say about 50, less than 50 feet, it's
Okay.
fairly close. From where the edge of the clearing is, from where the shed was, you know, fairly close to where the pool was.
Okay.
And I told him the sign to remove, you know, take the shed pieces out, obviously.
Right.
Safety hazard.
But they kind of went,
Downhill.
it looks like 40 feet, 50 feet at least of clearing.
It's close.
And this is all basically in the,
It's on.
This would be
it's
definitely-
in the riverfront area.
100 feet, and then definitely all of it, 100, 200 foot anyways. Okay. Did you say Hannigan Engineering is involved with this
Nope,
one?
I apologize, I misspoke, they're involved with
Okay.
something else, but something about it today.
Okay. And when was this picture taken?
That picture was taken on Friday for the weekend.
Okay. So probably like the
I think it's 21st,
22nd.
22nd.
Okay.
Those tree stumps in the background of that photo, or?
I couldn't really get close enough to look. I don't have permission to be on the property. And every time I've gone there, I drive by there frequently, no one's home. And I've knocked probably 5 times trying to see if I could take a look, but no one answers.
And Paul, this was overgrowth. What was it before?
There's a lot of understory that was in there. I think some trees might have been removed, I'm not sure.
That's what it looks like from the aerial.
From the area, that's what it looks like, but can't really get in there.
Okay.
You know, it started with the shed, and every time you go by, it just gets bigger.
Bigger and bigger and bigger and
Yeah,
bigger.
it's creeping down the hill.
Okay.
So,
Oh yeah, it was definitely more than just.
yeah, if you look at the
this
street
there.
view, you can see what's been altered.
That's just
on the
Google
photo.
Street View, very similar
Yeah,
to
we
it.
have,
So there's definitely
Substantial
some
amount.
substantial amounts of
there's trees.
vegetation and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay.
It's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like.
Does it say on that Google Street View, like a date sometimes on those?
2018.
This is copyright 2018.
Okay.
I'm assuming this was last fall. Yeah, there's a lot of understory that was taken out of there.
So what's the
And
next?
perhaps a few trees. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like some smaller trees anyways, thanks Brad. Oh, sorry.
But apparently the rationale was to remove poison ivy.
Yeah, but
Using
that-
a bobcat to remove poison ivy is kind of extreme.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Did we issues, I'm sorry, refresh my memory on this one again, there's too many enforcement issues tonight. Did we issue an enforcement order on this one?
Not an actual, like, an enforcement, I just sent out an enforcement letter requesting to come to the meeting to discuss and explain, you know, what was going on in the area. It looks like though that they have left.
Were they here earlier?
I haven't met them in person, but I
Oh, okay.
think I know they were,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Well, I think we do a formal enforcement
Yeah.
order. You know, same scenario, have them give us a restoration plan, obtain a wetland consultant to help them out with that, and provide us that information within 45 days.
I would agree with that. If we haven't officially done it, I think we should officially do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue an enforcement order for 103 Exchange Street, requiring the property owner to submit to us a restoration plan for the alteration of riverfront resource areas with the help of a wetland scientist. And that plan should be submitted to us within 45 days for review.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Thank you. You'll take care of that, Angela. Thank you. And the other people are 1145 Central. Excuse me. Alterations, lot paving within a riverfront. So where do we stand?
I sent out the enforcement order via the sheriff, the county sheriff's department. I believe Mr. Bolio received it and he is here tonight.
I am.
All right.
I also did receive a NOI this morning
Okay.
for the site, but obviously.
What did the enforcement order state? Or it was
It was
just
the
a letter?
enforcement order that we sent out in a letter, saying the enforcement order is this, and you need to come to the meeting to discuss further.
Okay.
And an NOI has been filed already now?
I got it this morning, from Ms. Hannon.
If I may, through the chair,
Yes.
Bill Hannigan Engineering, we were contacted by Mr. Bolio, first time a while ago when this all first started happening, did some initial survey work, and took a look at things, and nothing was ever submitted to the commission at that time. So more recently, I think it was Friday, I think Bob came to our office and basically asked, said, what do I do now? And I said, well, you have to file with the commission. So we filed a notice of intent with the commission. In looking at the regulations relative to riverfront, it's very, very limited of what he can do on the property, period. We've taken a look at some of the historical street views from the 2009, it might be 2007, as far back as it goes. We haven't put that information on the plan as of yet. What we've given the commission within the narrative is a discussion about basically we're doing this notice of intent in response to the enforcement order, so that we won't have all the information that would be typically submitted with a notice of intent would work within the riverfront, specifically an alternative analysis. What I was hoping to be able to do, and I think we would open the public hearing first, but once the public hearing is done, is actually meet on site and review the site and figure out exactly what we can all agree on is the best approach. Drawing it on a plan, it shows a plan. I think seeing it in person, it makes more sense, and we can come up with a resolution of how to rectify the problem in a more expeditious manner. Mr. Bolio has expressed to me his willingness to do so, but he also has a need to be able to maintain as much of what he's done out there as possible from a business perspective. So that needs to be factored in here somehow. So the notice of intent that was submitted, I'm expecting that DEP, and I'm going to probably give Megan a call to tell her what our approach is. They're going to kick back and say there's no alternative analysis on this, which we acknowledge. We state that right in the NOI. We did take a look at some of the stormwater management criteria relative to meeting those, and under redevelopment, you have less requirements, that things can be waived and pulled back a little bit. The pre-development or the precondition stormwater management basically was non-existent, and basically it flows off the property over towards Grant Street. And basically looking at some of these street views, we could see, we actually had one occasion that one of the street views actually had water in it, where you could see that some of it goes towards the brook, the other part goes over to the catch basin on the other side of Grant Street. So either way, it gets into that watershed or water area. From a sediment perspective, gravel's better, pavement's better than gravel from an infiltration ability. gravel's better than pavement. So, you know, there's a wash there. One of my thoughts is maybe to try to, at the end of the day, mitigate some of this with some sort of infiltration of roof runoff, stuff like that, that'll at least provide some mechanism of enhancement over the previous condition to allow the pavement to stay in as much of the area as possible during present condition. So that's my approach. So when you look at the notice of intent and read through it, you will notice that there are some items missing, but that's part of it is because of the fact that we don't have, we didn't have a lot of time to get it done. And part of it was because of the fact that I think that there's very limited ability to actually comply on the riverfront with the extended pavement he did on the property. So we know that some of that's gonna need to be pulled back. It's just a matter of where we draw the line.
Was that 100% gravel, that parking area?
What's paved now is not 100% gravel, no.
Okay.
So but there are other areas on the right side of the property. Some of these pictures you can see, you know, in the historical street views, you can see that he really didn't go beyond where it was, where it's paved now. On the left side of the building, I didn't think there was anything further, but as I got back into the pictures, there was areas on the left-hand side where it was gravel. There's an area, one picture that if you show a car trailer in the back. Now, some of it does it reach the level of being degraded in the back? Probably not. But there are other areas that we can kind of work with those pictures and kind of come up with a resolution. That's my objective.
Okay.
And everybody wants to take the stump out too. So just if you've been up to the stump in the middle of the parking lot, he's working with that. You're not actually working, the National Grid's working to remove that stump. There's a wire coming across from the pole across the street, and there's a tree that was cut down at least 15 years ago, probably.
Never noticed it.
And
I've just
the
reminded
wire is still connected to it. It's amazing. So I guess National Grid's working with the next owner up to put a pole on their property to remove that. So, but I presume, I think that's the proper protocol is to go to the public hearing, open it up, and then I think the next date is the 10th.
Yep. Sorry.
So if I could ask that, I'm going to be on vacation that meeting. If I could ask the commission, open up the meeting, set the date for a site walk, which hopefully will be the following week sometime, and then just continue to the next meeting. That way we can keep the process rolling, take no testimony, but just for the purpose of scheduling the site walk, if that's okay with the commission, I'd like to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That way I can be present for all the proceedings.
And you're on vacation the week of?
The week of the 10th.
That week of the 10th, okay.
Next 2 weeks in May.
Okay.
But available by email if needed.
I have one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Just if you're gonna look at the site between now and then, there was, the pavement isn't that, there's actually a lot of material beyond the pavement where they leveled it off, and like beyond the pavement where there were low spots, it looks like it was just filled in with some material.
We never did it.
Where?
Like if you're coming down from Grant Street, you can see it between the pavement and the stream. It's like, it looks like that some of the areas were built up.
No, if you look at the old pictures.
I just wanna make sure it's stable. That's what I'm concerned with.
I agree with you. You know, if you look at some of the old pictures though, I think what happened over time was gravel and more stone dust and stuff like that. And I think what happened was as they plowed, they just kept on plowing towards that side. And I think there is a bank of material that looks like it's, may look like it's fresh, but it's probably not. It's probably just historic gravel that's been pushed to the back every time a snowstorm comes through. That's probably what that is. I know what you're talking about. The hay bales are on top of it. So the hay bales were put in prior to the pavement, so.
I just wanna make sure that it's
Yeah,
stable. That's really my concern.
Well, we can take a look at that at the sidewalk, but I believe I think that's the result of just years and years of paving. I mean, plowing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And you have the NOI?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Haven't scanned it yet, but we'll get that tomorrow.
Comments from any commission members at this point?
Do you want us to give you a scan of it?
Great,
Yeah.
we have a scanner, but.
Yeah, we usually scan it.
Before I die here. Any other comments? If not, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
we're good.
Thank you.
Nice spending the evening with you guys.
We're not done.
Can we take a 2-minute break? Before I die.
You don't sound good there.
All right, so let's go back to, do we want to talk about boilerplate? Did anybody,
I did receive suggestions on verbiage from Mr. Stone.
I didn't send them to you, mine.
No,
but-
you didn't send me yours. So I
What-
added his in so far from what we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay.
Does anyone else have suggestions that they
I'll
want
have
to
to
send
send you
along?
mine
Do you,
formally.
do you have an updated one at this point, or?
I haven't printed it out yet, because I want to try and get
No, it's-
everyone's on
yeah.
there.
If you could at some point, before the next meeting, maybe just email us an updated one and
Yeah,
we'll look and
that was
see.
my thing.
Yeah.
What do you mean by
Only
updated?
you,
Like
only you
follow-
did
Like
your
before
homework.
Right,
Suggestions
well, yeah,
and-
like
Yeah.
if you're gonna send something in, try to do it the next few days maybe, and then
Yeah.
she can,
And I'll highlight all the different changes, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah, because I probably have 5 or 6 notes. I got 4 here plus a couple of things, okay. So yeah, if we can definitely do that, because I think a lot of, even tonight, like with wetland signs and stuff like that, some changes need to be made, so. Did you do your homework, Mr. Colombo?
I did.
You did.
I have a couple of things.
You do, okay. So yeah, if everybody can, Liz, I know you weren't at our last meeting, did you have a chance to review the boilerplate?
Yes, I need like a little more time.
No, that's fine. If we can get everything to Angela by, and then if you could kind of send the list of saying this
Say
is
next
what,
Wednesday to get everyone.
you know,
Next Wednesday. All right, let's see what I have.
Paul might be busy, but
I had a question
yeah,
that I'd like to ask. On the boilerplate, on page 4, it says, let us see prior to construction. And it states that no work shall commence on a site before a construction general permit from the EPA is obtained for a site with disturbances of more than 1 acre.
correct.
Does that mean disturbances in total, or
Yes.
disturbance of a resource area? What
Yep.
kind of disturbance are we talking about?
it's any disturbance, and it can also apply to multiple lots under different ownership, for instance, that the total disturbance is gonna be 1 acre.
Okay.
Under what's called a common plan of sale or development. So if you have a subdivision, for instance, or a bunch of A&R lots side by side, and you have all these different developers doing them, they can't come in and claim that I'm only disturbing less than 1 acre, when the total development of that's gonna be more than 1 acre.
Right.
So I think it was probably added just to try to emphasize that point as part of the order of conditions process. But it's also regulated under the stormwater bylaw. And have you read it recently, Angela?
Yes.
Does it go lower than an acre threshold? I believe it did.
I've read it, I don't have it
Okay.
memorized at this time, working on it.
Right, most communities go below
It's
1 acre
something-
now.
Yeah. I
So-
wanna say it's half, maybe. I can't say it until I have it in front of me, I can double check.
Yeah. So as part of that construction general permit, they're supposed to do a notice of intent filing with EPA and develop a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And it wouldn't hurt for us to ask for a copy of that SWIP, just so that we have it.
Okay.
But somebody from the city should be enforcing those type of sites as part of the MS4 permit that the city's under. And I don't think I've ever got a clear answer who's doing that. I think it was set up through the Conservation Commission, but in terms of staff who's doing that, I'm not sure.
From what I understand, that falls under my job title at this time. But there is also a stormwater manager who works with the DPW. So I was told that I'm the stormwater enforcement though.
Okay.
Who was our stormwater manager?
His name is Mr. Sean Como.
Sean Como.
So sites like Harvard Street, would that come under that? For that
Harvard
sewer
Street?
line that they wanted to put in?
I don't think they're doing an acre disturbance there.
You don't think so?
No.
How about the condominium project on Exchange Street?
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely come under it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the
Those are
ones-
the only two that I can think of recently that.
In that construction permit, the EPA's been revising that constantly lately, it seems. I think the latest version is from 2017. I'm not even sure I read the latest one, but there's more information in there if you're curious.
I wasn't sure what.
It's not the site, but what they're disturbing. So the site, like over on Harvard Street, that site might be 10 acres, but if they're only disturbing 20,000 square feet, it doesn't trigger that. But like 96 Exchange is definitely more than an acre, so
Yeah.
they would need a SWIP and all that.
Did they have that?
Yes, as part of the conditions, you guys all received it, I think, before I was on, in my position in the Stormwater Management. I do have copies in the office.
Pretty sure it came up at one point of
Yeah.
one of the 10
Yeah.
meetings we had with
Yeah.
them, but yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, it's just something I didn't understand.
Okay.
See, there are things I don't understand, and I admit that.
Not many. Not many. All right, so if we can get those over to Angela, any adjustments or changes, and we can just talk about it maybe at the next meeting. We good. Old business, Manusanack Brook.
So I had a meeting with the engineers and the DPW team today. I provided you the paperwork from that meeting. At this time, I obviously just got to say, so I'll send you all an electronic copy as well as for your copies to keep. We basically went over the pricing for the entire wall replacement option. The summary of the engineer's opinion would be $1,780,000 for the entire wall replacement. Versus the compensatory storage would be $206,000 estimated. At this time, we would need to obviously acquire this money. I would have to, obviously go through the process. It would also have to go to bid before it can be done. It looks, you can kind of, there's a lot of images here as well that go into detail the state of the wall. Starting maybe on, it says page 1, but it's attachment A, page 1. After that, you can start seeing all the work they do. At this time, there's really nothing. They said there's no board, nothing really holding the wall in, so they wouldn't be able. They'd have to repair the entire wall. Wouldn't be struck. It wouldn't make sense to do just one part, because they'd have to go through all the actions.
What is a compensatory storage option? I don't.
There's
Are they just propose the wrap as is?
at this time it's what.
$200,000 to leave some stone and dig a hole?
Nope, for the compost storage, we go to attachment B. They would, the base of the fill on there is where the riprap is. And then they would have to do, the riprap slope. Okay, let's look at it, would be across the way. Unfortunately, they can't just take it out from the middle, and even when they did do the compensatory storage, the engineer said it wouldn't be the 1-to-1, it'd be more like 1 to 1.5, just because of the nature of the area.
Slope.
I think we're still, a lot of the issues that we're talking about, the water, the erosion and scouring from, doesn't look like it's gonna change with this plan B.
No, it looks like they're just taking out.
How about a grading riprap look like that, Chris, do you?
No.
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 What goes into the price as well is there's the new river walkway that was put in. So they'd have to go over that, so that area would be disturbed and would have to be, there'd also have to be quite a few repairs done after the fact, which is included in both the monetary price that they gave us.
It's not a very good report on page 7 for that concrete covered channel that's in the parking lot that I was asking about.
Yeah.
I mean, from what they're saying here, it looks like it's ready to collapse. Exposed rebar, which is deteriorating. Corroded rebar, top of the slab can't be viewed, it's covered with pavement. That doesn't look good at all. That's where those wires were hanging down. Remember the day we were down there and I asked them about the condition of it? I haven't had a chance to read this. Have you?
Yeah. I did receive, I received it, at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I haven't read through the whole thing, but we did meet with Megan, the engineer, as well as DPW, and we discussed it. She provided me with a digital copy as well, by any event about $450.
So the higher cost option, would that
That would be,
that would do this channel as well?
yes,
'Cause it looks like
that would be this one right here. Which is in the long term, they understand that that would be the best plan, long term.
I guess my question has to do with, why do we have to find the money? I don't understand that comment.
Who owns the parcel?
The city.
General Municipal?
It's just under the city of Leominster, so
Okay. So when you say we, who are you referring to?
myself, so it would fall under myself to, obviously solicit from the mayor the money.
What?
Yeah.
That's not,
It's not our
it's
job.
not conservation.
Who said this? The engineer?
At the meeting, it was discussed.
DPW, I mean, they're the ones that handle these situations. I mean,
Is it what?
they use infrastructure for the city.
So to me, it sounds like we don't want to do it, go find us $2 million, we'll do it for you, is the comment.
Wow.
That's a first. Yeah, that sounds to me like it's a, no, we're on camera.
But the city I mean, the 14 years I've been on the commission, I've never had the city take a infrastructure project and push it back on.
Conservation
Conservation
Commission say,
Commission.
go find us $1.7 million. Okay.
Well, the issue is they don't have the money.
You know what it sounds like, do they want to do the work to find the money? Because
Well, you have to wonder if that
The deep-
culvert isn't a safety issue.
I have a feeling DPW just wants to walk away with this saying it's stable. So they're putting it on the Conservation Commission at this point to, if you want it fixed, go find us the money.
Really?
That's just my humble opinion. So,
Well, indeed, it's not our responsibility to fix the wall or worry about the structural capability of the wall and the culvert. But the riprap and the obstruction in the brook is our responsibility. And we, I would assume, have the authority to tell them to get it out of there.
that is correct.
This is nice. I mean, it's a very extensive report. I'll read through the whole thing. But it doesn't answer the original issue or concern that we had as a commission, and that was the construction of the brook. that material needs to come out of there, one way or another.
Yeah, that was an emergency fix.
Right.
Well, they can potentially solve the problem with compensatory storage.
Right.
So it doesn't have to come out if they construct that.
But it would have to be there's still some erosion and scouring issues, isn't there?
I'd have to look at it again
Yeah.
and read through this, but
But it's gonna be at different elevations.
Yeah.
well, they've detailed that.
Yeah.
They've given a table for the compensatory
Yeah.
storage.
Yeah.
One of these pages, it was,
Right.
is it on the plan? Is that where it starts?
B, I think.
Attachment B,
First- the
correct.
first
So it's attachment B.
Right.
Yeah, they had the elevations on it.
Although I have concern with the elevations that they're proposing. They put fill in a number of those areas without providing compensatory at those levels. And I've seen this happen before. People will try to put it in all at that lower elevation, which you really can't.
Right.
Because the way the floods happen is it's a timing issue.
Oh, because they want to put it all in at the bottom.
Right.
They just want to dig a big hole and say, here it
Yeah,
is.
it doesn't, floods don't work that way.
Yeah, because you got it at as high as 396, and they're stopping at 392, so they're 4 feet.
Yeah.
4 feet, they're stopping 4 feet below where.
So this site possibly limited them to try to provide it in those areas because it's a deep cut walls and everything.
Right,
And that was discussed, yeah, it's a difficult site for them to get the
at that,
storage, yeah.
right, at each elevation, right.
It's a tight area. And then another issue that was brought up was, in order to do some of the work, they would have to access, parking lots that are not owned by the city, which, that was discussed, and that was historically going to be an issue. Getting permission to use those parking lots and shut them down to do the work, to get all the big not the materials, big machines in. So
Okay.
it's gonna have to go through quite a few boards and,
Okay. Well, you said you had this electronically as
yeah,
well?
I can send, these copies are all for you, they brought them to the meeting today, so I was able
Okay.
to bring them tonight. But I can also send it along electronically.
Yeah, if you could, and we'll look it over and we can discuss it at our next meeting. We can talk about concerns and issues, so. 66 Granite.
So I did speak to Mr. Morrow this morning. I also sent everyone a doodle invitation. He requested that we go to the site on Saturday at some point in the morning. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it at that time, but I've already been on site. And he also wanted me to let everyone know that he's sorry he can't make it, but they are working on a conservation plan for there.
If we're gonna do a site walk on a Saturday, it's going to be for the enforcement issue,
And
right?
that's, I did explain that to them, that we, on the sidewalk, we are only going there to be,
Talk
evaluating
about the
the
enforcement issue.
I don't want the 2-hour tour of all of the future wonders of, what's gonna happen. I just wanna
Right.
look at the one issue that we're there for.
Well, I guess the question is, while we're sitting here, who can make it on Saturday?
I can make it on Saturday.
I can make it on Saturday.
I can do that.
Okay. Do
I
we wanna-
can't, but I've already seen it.
I know you've seen it.
Unless Paul wants to babysit for me. Which is fine.
What time would we like to do it?
On the doodle, I made the options from 8 a.m. till, I think, 9:30
I'd
a.m.
rather do it earlier and get it out
Just
of the
get it
way.
done with. 5?
That's fine. Crack it on.
I don't know.
I think there's even light, natural light to that area, but
I was up at 4:45 this morning. It was kind of light. It's good enough.
I don't think that's right.
I mean, 8 o'clock works for me.
8
I
o'clock.
already answered the doodles.
You did?
Yes, I think I saw that.
Can you make it at 8?
Yep.
All right, why don't we set it up for 8 o'clock? And is Mr. Morrow going to be there, do we know? Is the property owner going to be there? You know?
For my conversation with tomorrow,
Okay,
and also the couple.
okay.
So I
It
can
says
double
the-
check and send a itinerary.
I'm 99% sure I can make it, but I will try my hardest to do that. And so send up for 8 a.m. Paul will be on his yacht, so.
I'm not 100% sure that I can't make it, but I think
I think I can, I think I can.
we can.
All right, 723 Willard Street.
At this time, I have no update. I have contacted lawyers and left messages, but have not received a return yet.
All right. I would like to make a comment. My comment is, yes, we've contacted an attorney. Obviously, it's been a month now, and we've seen no movement. I guess my thought is I would look at this as, if you were to hire a personal attorney, you're asking for their guidance, but you don't always have to listen to them. I think we should personally step away and just hire a constable to get a letter. The last letter we sent them, we can edit it for a different time, because it was May of 2018. And we have a constable served as soon as possible. That's my thought.
Right, just excuse me 1 second, because I was listening to the vacuum cleaner.
Sorry.
So where do you stand with this again?
So last time I had a conversation with one of the lawyers from the attorney's office. He was going to draft up a letter to send out through their own constable to the homeowner. He was gonna send me a copy of the letter just to make sure everything was worded correctly. I never received it, so I called him the Wednesday after the last meeting, as well as I called him the Wednesday this past week and left messages at the office, as well as I left messages on the general voicemail box at the office, and I have not received any callbacks.
So they answered us on all these other things, but this one instance, they just refused to talk to us? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, this has been going on for what, 2 years?
That's
Maybe he was
correct.
on vacation?
That's what
It's
I was
been a
wondering,
month.
is it- Did you ask, like,
I didn't speak to a person.
you didn't speak to a person at all?
This is an
I get
agency, though.
voicemails.
There's gotta
Correct, this
be, I
is
mean,
a-
if one guy's on vacation, someone's gotta be covering his work. It's not like it's a one-man show.
You'd hope so.
I mean, basically, the way I look at it is, they told us they were gonna draft a letter and have them served by a constable. That was their recommendation. Obviously, it's been a month since we made our first, which was 2 meetings ago, we made our first contact with them. And it's been nothing since. Why can't we as a commission, just like we did for 1145 Central Street, hire our own constable? We have our own letter, which we have mailed to him in the past, and last got rejected. Why can't we at least go to that step and have him served saying, you have 14 days to remove it, and if not, we'll take legal action.
And we still have the lawyer.
And you still have the lawyer to fall back to say, hey, he wants to sue us now, whatever the case may be, but at this point, we're just prolonging this
Right, we just
one
want-
piece of paper handed to this gentleman. I'm getting very frustrated that this just keeps getting kicked down the road over and over and over. And in the past, these attorneys have gotten back to us, but on this one instance, they're not. So I just really think we need to do something on our own. And I personally think as a commission, sending a letter that we all drafted as a group, reviewed by an attorney at one point, the same attorney, the same firm, I should say, why can't we just send it again through our own constable? What is that gonna hurt at this point? Because right now, The only one that's getting hurt is the conservation land, because it's currently developed.
No, we just get nowhere. The night that we were looking at having 2 enforcement orders
Mhm.
delivered via a constable, the one that we did send out, they were here tonight. They filed. We now know where that's going. And I questioned it that night, why this one and not that one? But they wanted to hold that one back. For what reason? I mean, if they're gonna hold it back to review it, it should have been reviewed and it should now be out, but it's not.
That's correct.
I think we're just being stonewalled.
That's my thought. And I'm getting very frustrated, and I just think, as a commission, that our task is to conserve open space and the Wetlands Protection Act. We're not doing what's in the best interest of the city of Leominster at this point. Because we have one property owner that chose to develop open conservation land for his own use,
Yep.
so. Thoughts?
I don't think we gain much by doing it ourselves.
Okay.
If we've struggled this long, I mean, ultimately, you need somebody to push it through the system. So if we send a letter out and the legal services still aren't there, that letter doesn't do anything. Or somebody might look at it and say, well, you didn't do this letter correctly, I can't enforce this,
Enforce
I
that
still
letter?
need to do it.
Okay.
I don't know, I would say give them till the next meeting, and in the meantime, think about other options. Because there probably are some.
But has he ever been officially notified? Because he's never
He's-
gotten.
Yes.
He's in here.
He's
Yes.
been before us.
Yes, he has.
Oh, that's right, he
Yeah.
has.
We're the
been-
representative.
That's right,
He-
that's
Yeah, he
right.
brought an
He
engineer
knows,
with him.
he knows of the issues
That's
and that's correct.
So yes, so then I agree. In a way.
Okay. Should I contact the mayor's office personally and ask for assistance?
Wouldn't hurt. I mean, we're just getting nowhere. No one comes before this commission to explain what's going on. I mean, Angela's doing the best she can
Mhm.
to try to make contact with these people, and they just basically blow us off. This has been going on and on and on since I've been on this commission. It's been years. It's time. It's time somebody would come out of the woodwork and tell us what they're going to do.
Maybe, just a suggestion, maybe if I stop by the mayor's office tomorrow, kind of see if they can assist me first and then see how that goes. So, I mean, assist the commission, not myself, sorry.
Can we at least get an update from the, I'd like to at least get an update from the attorney and say, hey, what's the progress?
I mean, this
With a customer.
this is so easy to do, I don't know what.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, it's,
let's,
Something's not right.
we had to go through the mayor's office to get permission to go talk to the attorney. I'll represent the commission and talk to the mayor and ask
Just an update.
an update. Basically, the council that we've hired is not servicing us in our need. As the mayor of the city, we need your help.
not the shot.
Yeah.
Let me know, Angela, if you want to reach out first. Do you want to try first at the mayor's office?
Yeah, let me try first and see if maybe somehow, maybe the attorneys, maybe they contacted them and just never got up to me.
Okay. Okay. 35 Berkshire Drive.
I have not received an update at this time, my plan was to give Karen Environmental a ring and see if,
Okay.
they know what's going on, if they have been contacted by the homeowner. Last time I checked, the homeowner said he contacted them twice now, and then he should be getting in touch with me.
Okay.
But I understand it's busy.
So at this point, we're waiting on Chuck Karen is what the homeowner's telling us.
Yes.
Okay. 96 Exchange.
So at this time, me and Mr. Colombo took a visit to the site to inspect the erosion controls. There was a couple of issues. They had only installed the straw wattles, not the silt fence as well as they had left the other silt fence and hay bales in place and just worked the straw wattles around it. As well as the wetland delineation has not been done.
What do you mean by that?
The flags are no longer, they still haven't put them up. And that was requested of them to do before they put in the erosion controls, obviously.
Yeah.
So I contacted Mr. Morrow to kind of see if he was planning on getting out there, because I do know he was the one who did it.
He flagged it, but he can't reestablish, you need to survey reestablish those. So they were, what usually happens is the wetland scientist goes out, delineates the boundary marks them with the flags, and then a surveyor goes and locates them. So the wetland scientist can't go pick those exact locations and put them back where they were on the approved plan set. You need a surveyor to do that.
I do know he said he was going to work with Mr. Oldfield's office to get out there, but due to a personal matter, he has not been able to get out there since Mr. Oldfield requested him a couple months ago to do it. So he was going to touch base and let me know how that goes. So at this time, that's where we are.
And we're currently under cease and desist still. So no work has been done other than
the erosion.
erosion controls.
Which
Is
I
there-
did give him permission to.
Is there any other conditions in the order that still need to be met?
So we have the stormwater management report. One concern that was brought up to me was that the report that we have was not signed, but after looking into it further, it looks like they do a lot of e-signatures, DocuSigns on the web for those. So I reached out to the engineer who did the stormwater report to get a copy of the signature pages, because the ones I had just had blank signature pages. And he's working on that. I contacted him on Monday.
Yeah, we should get at least have one copy of everything with an original signature.
Yeah, so I did request that, and he said, I spoke to his secretary or clerk, and he said he was gonna get those over to me as soon as he had a copy of them available.
All right. Anything else going on there? Okay. Emergency certifications,
None at this time.
project updates.
I paid the only one that was requested was 103, which I,
Okay. Budget, you have it attached here,
yes.
at least to mine. Okay. And last we spoke, you were working with someone in the controller's office. to
Yes, I
get-
did, Ms. Canedo went back and we went over everything. Everything does match what we have in there, and as I provided to you, I haven't had a chance to scan it in. Once I scan it in, I'll email that out to everyone.
Okay.
So it's in Munis now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good, because last time they told us they couldn't be in Munis, it wasn't. It had to be, it was on the.
It is, but I need to work with the comptroller's office to get a copy,
That's good.
to get access to it.
Okay. Agents report.
I was finishing that up this afternoon. I had typed meetings today, so I'll be emailing that out to everyone.
If you could email it, that would be great, because you do a great job on that, thank you. Chairman's report, I have nothing. Our next meeting is July 10th, the filing deadline of June 28th. Is there anything else we need to discuss this evening?
I'm not sure if vacations or anything pertain, but we need to discuss that on camera, like vacations that everyone's taking this summer.
I mean, normally, when it comes to summertime and holidays, we do talk about, maybe only having one meeting if there's a lot of people that can't make it to certain things. This year it's extremely busy compared to past years. At this point, I think we still need to hold the second and fourth Tuesday open. But if we're not gonna have a quorum, obviously we wanna adjust that, so. I'm assuming everybody can make the July 10th meeting as of right now. Okay.
We need more members.
We do need more members.
I've recruited a few people who are starting the process.
Okay.
And
Beautiful.
trainings that I've implemented.
Very good, very good.
Listen.
That's it.
Do you know if they've officially started the process, meaning?
I gave them the information
Okay,
to kind of go through the process. But I
Okay.
do know that at least one of them, she's highly interested. She's a Leominster resident,
Okay.
pursuing her master's degree in environmental science.
okay, perfect, perfect.
Nice.
We already
She
have a
works-
cop.
She as
so
an
we're
attorney
good.
at MACC, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, if we could get new members, I mean, we currently have, what, 5? 1, 2, yeah, 5. We'll have 4 to 7, so. It helps on quorums. So, yeah, so I mean, right now, just because the agenda's been so busy, in the past, we've kind of said, we'll just push it off, but we'll keep with 2 a month unless it becomes a problem, so.
I do know that in the end of July, I believe, July 27th and 28th, that's a Thursday, Friday, after, I believe, one of our meetings. I have my calendar in front of me. I will be out of state in the mountains, so I don't know if I can give someone the emergency phone line in case there is any issues.
Unfortunately, usually they come to the chairperson.
I'll give you the emergency
As
phone
they
line.
should.
In the past, that's normally who they go to.
I'll give you key to the office, so.
Let's not go
I'm
too
gonna be, I'm
far.
gonna be in the White
Let's
Mountains.
go
so
too
I'll have
far,
no
yeah.
internet
Good thing we
service.
only vote on officers once every 10 years then.
I just
So-
wanna make sure I let everyone know that I'll be going away.
Yeah, so if basically with that being said, if you know if you're gonna be on vacation July, August, or in September,
Just July, to the White Mountains.
just let us know and we'll, if we have to move the meeting. You're always on vacation, Mr. Colombo, I know.
Permanently.
So, anything else we'd like to discuss?
Unusually lengthy meetings.
Okay.
They happen,
We'll try to get those to stop, so.
9 o'clock says 9:04.
I guess, and with that, this meeting is adjourned.